Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the UK Sim Racing community's Porsche Cup Season 4, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks rounds 9 and 10 of the season calendar that continues to ask the question, who is the master in the art of driving the Porsche 992 Cup racing machine? Well, with only 3 rounds left, with 2 of them being today and then our season finale round being in 2 weeks' time, we've not got long to find out the answer for Season 4, and our venue for today is going to go a long way in putting our drivers to the ultimate test to see how well they can handle their Porsche machinery. For we're at Mount Panorama, known more colloquially perhaps as the Bathurst racing circuit, located in Australia, and this New South Wales circuit is no stranger to inspiring fear in the hearts of many a racing driver. Consisting of a limited number of straights, albeit very long in length, and more importantly the run over the summit, over the mountain, with the walls ever close, as you can see in the background of our pictures. This is a circuit that is not for the faint-hearted, and indeed will be a test of our drivers' ability not behind just the wheel, but also their confidence in order to keep the car pointed on the straight now when the walls close in and the pressure is on in looking to bring home that all-important win. Well, how they get on, we'll find out shortly. But in terms of tonight's broadcast, it's being brought to you fully live, so if you're tuning in right now, you'll be tuning in on YouTube at the official UKSimRacing YouTube channel, and in the commentary booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight, and indeed for the remainder of the season, and what a season it has been so far. And if you are tuning in right now, do not be shy, feel free to say hi in the chat. I hope you're all doing well and having a fantastic week so far, with Friday around the corner, and if you're not, well, I hope this Porsche Cup racing action will definitely inspire you to make it through Friday and to the weekend. Indeed, what a plentiful schedule we have ahead of us. But speaking of schedules, let's go through our calendar so far and what we still got lying in wait, and then come on to our standings. And so, as we take a look at the season ahead, we can see we are almost at the very bottom of the calendar. Last time out, of course, in rounds 7 and 8, we were in Italy at the Imola circuit, and there we saw 2 absolutely dramatic races. It didn't matter whether you were looking at the gold drivers class or indeed the silver drivers class, both races full of drama, but it was the gold class that really had the brunt of the drama in the feature race, where at the end the podium was settled not by how our drivers finished out of the circuit, but indeed by a multitude of post-race penalties, particularly drive-through penalties, and also a major incident which occurred right on the final lap between Simnor and what was, I do believe, Sampson, and the 2 drivers coming together there really kicked off a chain of events which saw the field shaken up massively. And could we see that again tonight? Well, we'll have to wait and see, of course. But prior to Imola, in rounds 5 and 6 at the halfway point of the season, we were at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium back on the 20th of October, and back then it was a pair of races which are the extended Belgian circuit, so our drivers really have to push it to the utmost, and it was a test of stamina just as much as it was the ability to overtake and keep the car pointed straight. Then in rounds 3 and 4, going a little bit further back to the 6th of October, we're at the Italian circuit of Monza, making 2 visits to Italy in this season, and at the Monza circuit there, despite normally putting fear in the hearts of a driver, Monza turn 1, we did not see any dramatics or theatrics at turn 1 at Monza. Indeed, we saw 2 absolutely fantastic races which went all the way down to the wire, and indeed, as we like to proverbially call it, the boss fight, where a good number of drivers were trying to cut their way past the DCW racing crew in the feature race in the gold class. Then all the way back in our season opener at Road Atlanta on the 22nd of September, it was a pair of races which were right on the threshold of keeping it clean and narrow. For the simple reason there, we had the incorrect instant count put into the races, where it was only times 5 turns instead of times 17, but still our drivers pressed ahead, and there we saw us driving right on the limit in terms of making sure not to have a brief off-track or alternative contact with another driver, no matter how small, because a good number of drive-through penalties were awarded. But hopefully we're not going to be seeing any drive-through penalties today, for it is the 17th of November, and in rounds 9 and 10 we're here in Australia. And after today, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be wrapping up on what is Thursday the 1st of December at the single round Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke VLN circuit, or to put it simply, we're doing the full variant of the Nürburgring. That's right, going from the traditional Grand Prix circuit all the way up onto the Nordschleife Loop, and we'll be seeing our drivers take on the circuit in a single race. We will be seeing the merger of both the sprint and the feature races together, and the more details, the specific details, will come as the broadcast in 2 weeks' time. But I can assure you there, if you're looking forward to tonight, you've got plenty to look forward to in the season finale as well, as that will be a test of our drivers where they're used to running 2 races over the course of a single venue, but only in 2 weeks' time will they have 1 round to wrap it all up on. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's continue to focus on where we are today and the championship standings going into tonight. So as our drivers get ready to go racing, of course, we start looking at the Gold Class Drivers' Championship. And here we can see James Parker leading the way by a margin now that continues to grow of 24 points. As we said previously, the Gold Class was full of drama over the course of the 2 races at Imola, and you wouldn't be surprised if we did not see the championship fight change up too much. And going into Imola, it was James Parker and David Sampson who were very close together, but coming out of Imola, James Parker has finally started to make a break in terms of his championship lead. That 24 points doesn't sound like much, and you'd be right for saying that, but it is the most we've seen a single driver in the Gold Class play out a lead in the championship, and so Parker right now has the initiative, and the question is, can he continue to break away tonight? David Sampson there in P2, and now 7 points clear of Richard Simnor, and the 2 rivals, of course, rivals on the circuit, but friends off the circuit. You can imagine they'll both be vying for that P2 position to take the fight to Parker, with Stuart Bickley a little bit further back in P4 there, separated by 17 points off of Simnor, and the focus of Bickley will be to continue to break away from the pursuing pack, particularly the likes of Mike Pollard and Jack Atkinson, who on 46 and 42 points respectively are not too far behind. And when you add Misha Berger into the equation on 41 points in P7, you can imagine that one small mistake by Stuart Bickley could see him drop right back into that hunt for P4, P5, rather than trying to make his way into the top 3. With Daniel Dan Weaver in P8, then ahead of Emil Koopmans and Mark Custers completing the top 10. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing Mark Custers appear on the circuit today. From what I understand, he's not going to be able to make it. We wish him all the best, and then best of the rest there outside the top 10. Ryan Davies on 23 points, only 2 clear of the combination of Gordon Ramsay and Joe Newman, with Andy Jones on 18 points, Tim Darracott on 15 points, and then Lee Holmes and Ian Manners bringing up the rest of the standings. And as you can see there at the very bottom, we're not accounting for the drop week score as of yet. That will be applied after round 10. So after the racing is done tonight, when we go into the season finale, then you'll start to see the drop scores in effect. And remember, there's only 1 drop week in this series, so it's 2 rounds combined in terms of rounds 9 and 10, or rounds 7 and 8. You get the picture. Alternatively, the drop score could be the season finale, because that is effectively round 11, 2 rounds combined. We would be having rounds 11 and 12 if we were not combine them into a single race. But coming on to the silver class then, we can see here the complexion is rather similar in a way. Karen Willesee leads the championship in the silver class by 10 points over Travis Linscombe-Hatfield. And both of our championship leaders in the silver class, with Travis Linscombe-Hatfield being the leader for a significant period of time, but losing out the lead recently with resurgent Karen Willesee. That gap of 10 points is one of the greatest gaps we have seen so far in the silver class. And the question will be, can Willesee continue to maintain that momentum, or will he find himself oscillating back into the fight versus Linscombe-Hatfield? The thing is, for the pair, they're quite a way clear of the rest of the field, with Jack Ward there on 79 points, the best part of what is 12 points behind Linscombe-Hatfield, and that 12 points is the closest P3 and below have been to the top 2 since the start of the season. Simon Bamber there in P4, not too far behind either, 11 points off, and his focus will be to try and get a little bit closer to Jack Ward, but at the same time make sure that Steve Hughes is not able to gain momentum, because Steve Hughes has been starting to build significant momentum over the course of the season so far, and if he continues that today, then on paper, if we did a little bit of statistics, we would imagine he'd be right on to the point score Jack Ward come the end of tonight. And indeed, Simon Bamber as well will be thinking about that and wondering what can he do to take away the points that Steve Hughes is looking to gain. Steve Kershaw, meanwhile, in P6 on 44 points, gaining ground and getting ahead of Glenn Humberstone now, who's on 32 points in return. But Glenn Humberstone has a lot of pressure coming from behind, with Tom Davison 3 points off, and then Alistair Hatcher, Matty Wild and Richard White from P9 to P11, all on 20 points, only ahead of one another based on result countback. That's how tight it is to get into the top 10 in the silver class, and Richard White, they're technically best of the rest, but really you'd look to Lewis Willesee, the other of the Willesee brothers racing in the silver class in this series, and Lewis Willesee not quite having the run of his brother over the course of the last couple of rounds, but still enjoying the racing, no doubt, and trying to take the fight to the likes of Danny Weston, who is 5 points behind, and also Mark Oliver 5 points behind, with David Stewart, Ash Coverdale, Tom Weston and Aaron James completing the silver championship standings. Now coming onto the team standings, meanwhile, we can see that DCW Racing Blue now lead by a margin of 30 points. They are continuing to build up a gradual advantage, albeit not by much, and you can see there last time out in round 7 and 8, they did not gain any advantage over Samsung Kane and Esports, whereby both teams picked up the same amount of points across the 2 rounds. That's how close these teams are. DCW Racing Red, meanwhile, 96 points, started to fall away a little bit from the top 2, and their target was always to try and aim to look to finish inside the top 3, and now they've got a fight on their hands with 88 Tech Racing Purple right on their heels on equal points but behind based on result countback. Then we have the Saints in P5, they're on 67 points, neither there nor neither in terms of chasing down the top 4 but breaking away from the rest of the pack after them, and they'll have to keep on the ball today given that there's only a 12-point advantage between them and Willesee Racing in P6, with Rabbit Hole Racing a further 13 points behind, and then we have Simam Racing in P8, 88 Tech Racing Cyan in P9, Effect Esports P10 and Zilla Racing on 9 points, completing our team's championship standings. But coming from our standings then, let's go to our circuit for today. And it is none other than the Mount Panorama circuit, as it's known for, located in the town of Bathurst in New South Wales of Australia. This circuit, as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by simracingwiki.com, consists of 23 corners, and a good number of these corner names will be in the household dictionaries of those of you who live in Australia and indeed around the world. We start off at the start finish line, charging up towards Hell Corner, the left-hand right-angle corner at turn number 1, and make our way up the hill towards Griffiths Bend at turn number 2. A highly steeped camber corner at turn number 2, and you'll get to see that shortly when we go into qualifying. And as our drivers charge through turn number 2, they'll make their way up into the cut in the turns 3 and 4. And this is where the circuit narrows, overtaking opportunities start to disappear, and it's all about surviving the run over the mountain. For now, drivers make their way for the double right-hander quarry corner turns 5 and 6 before going through the sequence of turns 7, 8, 9 and 10. Turn number 10 also being known as McPhillamy Park before heading into Skyline at turn number 11. Then they'll start to make their way downhill through turns at 12, 13, 14. Turn 14 of course being known as the Dipper, and as they make their way out of 14 into the kink of 15, it's then they run through the kink of 16 and 17 before breaking downhill into Forest Elba at turn 18. Avoid going into the wall there, they'll make their way onto the back straight through the kink of 19 and go charging all the way down the back straight into the chase chicane at turns 20 through to 22, which is a right-hand fast kink followed up by a heavy braking zone into turn at 21, and as they make the way out at turn number 22, one corner awaits them, and that's Murray's corner, and as they come through the left-hander there, they'll have to do it all again shortly after, and indeed, what a thrilling lap it's going to be. Now, as for our rules for tonight, same rules as usual, no changes. There's going to be a lone qualifying session, which means that our drivers will have 8 minutes to set their best possible lap time on an isolated instance of the circuit, so they will all be out on circuit by themselves in iRacing, and they will have an unlimited number of laps technically within that 8 minutes. In terms of the races themselves, they'll commence via a standing start, and if you haven't seen the standing start of Bathurst, you're in for a treat. It is a very tight starting grid. Sprint race grid shall be set based on the results of qualifying. Meanwhile, the feature race grid shall be a partial reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race, with the top 8 positions inverted. What that means in English is whoever finishes 8th in the sprint race will start on pole for the purposes of the feature race, and conversely, whoever wins the sprint will be starting in P8 in the feature. Those who finish P9 downwards, well, that's exactly where they'll be starting the feature race based on the finishing position in the sprint race. There's going to be no mandatory pit stop in any of these races. The only time we're going to be seeing the driver come into the pits is they've picked up a drive-through penalty, or they've damaged the car enough to warrant coming into the pits for repair work, and a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. That's enough rules and regulations. We have to talk about X. It enables us to go racing, but let's head back to our circuit and take you through our schedule for tonight. And as you can see, their times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC, we will be in approximately 2.5 minutes time heading into qualifying, and that will be an 8-minute session where our drivers will attack the circuit as much as possible to set their best possible times and get themselves set up on the grid for the sprint race. Now immediately follow at 10 past 8 this evening, 12 minutes of racing there, and then we double the time duration of the race by 2.5 times before heading into the feature race at approximately 25 past 8 this evening, albeit with a brief couple minute break, so we might be slightly behind the schedule mentioned here. It's an approximate schedule at the end of the day, but at approximately 25 past 8 this evening we'll be doing 30 minutes of racing action, and well, that is going to be a huge test. We have always seen in the feature races how the tyres wear off so rapidly come the midpoint of the feature race, and it's all about tyre conservation, and also some drivers not having enough fuel to get to the end. Will we see anybody caught out by that as well tonight? Well, as our drivers get ready to go racing here, we do see Emil Koopmans there parked up at the end of the pit lane exit, waiting for a bit of clear space to make his way out onto circuit and getting himself set up right now. The fastest man in this final practice session, albeit I think practicing some standing starts or jumping back to the pit, but as our drivers make their way on around here, we can definitely see quite a gulf with regards to the lap times between drivers. Really, our top 3 at the moment setting some very fast lap times in this final practice session, and that's Emil Koopmans, Jack Atkinson, who you can see Atkinson making his way across the timeline and deciding to park up. He's had enough of his final practice, and also Tim Darracott. And then we have a sizable gap to James Parker, Gold Championship leader, of course, who sits there in P4. 6.5 tenths of the fastest lap in this session, but approximately 4 tenths of the P3 driver Tim Darracott. And now is Parker just holding it all in reserve and waiting to go on the offensive going into qualifying? I suspect he is, because he's just set a purple sector 1 in this practice session. He's setting some pretty fast sector times at the moment, so I think the 88 Tech Racing Team Purple Drive is saving it all up. But speaking of saving it all up, he saved it all up and to join us now, and that is Corey Lazarus here. Joining us, the New Zealand driver here, the privateer. I believe he does live in Australia, but he's from New Zealand, so he's technically racing at a partial home circuit, if you will, which is within the same continental region of Australia and New Zealand, so we'll give him that. But welcome to Corey Lazarus here, the privateer who joins us in the number 4 car, racing in the Gold class, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on in his debut in Season 4. And we also want to welcome Craig Schill from 88 Tech Racing and Team Cyan, who has joined us as of this pair of rounds. I do not believe he's joined us so far this season, and he'll be racing in the silver class in the 82 car. But whilst we are waiting to go into qualifying, if you're tuning in right now and you're a regular viewer of our broadcast and you are subscribed to the YouTube or the Twitch channel of UKSimRacing, then well done to you. And if you're not, why not subscribe today to make sure you don't miss a broadcast? And also, if you're ever wondering how can you potentially give back to UKSimRacing, if you've been enjoying the racing and wondering how you can support us as a community, well, did you know there's a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swelling and Meadow Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere and Demon Tweaks. And if you head to our website, which is uksimracing.co.uk today, which you can see on screen right now, you can see there is a link there on the left-hand side called Discount and Affiliate Links on the top left-hand side, and you can go to a page there. If you click on that, you'll be taken to the following page where you're able to make purchases through our affiliates. All you need to do is go to this page and then click on our affiliates images, and then you'll be taken to directed pages of their websites where you'll be registered as making a purchase for our affiliate. And in doing so, if you do make a purchase, then that will result in a discount for you, a kickback to us, and in turn, as we are a non-profit organisation at UKSimRacing, all of our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series, including the likes of the Porsche Cup and also the GT3 League, which are ever popular. Additionally, some of our affiliates provide discount codes which are available in the UKSimRacing Discord. So if you're not part of our not part of our Discord, I should say, then why not join today in order to capitalise on that? Because remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting your motorsporting aspirations and also UKSimRacing. But I can tell you what also can go a long way, and that is a good qualifying lap. And as we return to our live pictures, it is now time for qualifying. All the drivers making their way out on circuit, and as they do, well, who is going to come away with the big score in this qualifying session? That will be the big question. And well, Glenn Humberstone here right now looking to have a good session in the silver class. He's not normally had the strongest qualifying session compared to his peers. It's normally been either Karen Willisey in this latter half of the season, or alternatively Travis Linscombe Hatfield, who have put in the big laps in qualifying. But let's not count out the likes of Humberstone, alternatively Coverdale. They have been building on pace and they have been consistent within their class over the course of the season. They may be able to bring a surprise here today, because this is a very different type of circuit compared to what we've seen over the course of the season so far. This is a confidence circuit. It's about feeling confident in the car, in your driving ability, putting the two together and getting the most out of that pairing. There's no ideal way to set up the car here which guarantees that you're going to go fast, because you may be right on edge with the setup and you find yourself after 3 laps putting it in the wall. It may be good for qualifying, but not good in the race if you can't do more than 2 laps and put it in the wall. And I'll put my hand up and say it took me a very long time in my own sim racing experience to find the right setup of a car here in order to be able to get it done, dusted in terms of a 30-minute race at Bathurst, let alone a 12-minute sprint where everything is right on edge. But we'll have to see how our drivers do get on then as they head on down and get ready to go onto their first qualifying laps. In terms of who's going to be our first driver to head on to a qualifying lap, well, it does look as though it's going to be Stuart Bickley, who is one of our very first, and we're going to be riding on board here with the gold driver in the number 24 DCW racing machine as he takes us around for one of the first flying laps of this qualifying session. So as we ride on board and bring the dashboard up on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, he heads across the timeline and makes his way up towards turn number 1. So heading into Hell's Corner here, getting ready to brake at approximately 75 metres down to 3rd gear, and as he clears the apex, gets back on the power. Oh, goodness me! And a bit too much curb there, unsettles the car immediately for Bickley, and that will do no good whatsoever, and that's going to be an immediately aborted lap. Let's see if we can ride on board with another driver here, and it will be Glenn Humberstone we ride on board with. We go from gold to silver and see how the 88 Tech Racing driver gets on here as he heads around for his first qualifying lap, as he makes his way into turn number 1 here, going down to 2nd gear instead of staying in 3rd. That will give him a little bit more power deployment going out the corner, but also some additional wheel spin as he now makes his way up the straight up towards turn number 2. Now heading uphill here, you'll see he'll delay his upshifts as late as possible to maximise the revs, and as he heads up to the hill, brings the car over to the left-hand side in 6th gear and brakes down from 5th all the way to 3rd, going for the right-hand of Griffiths Bend, then getting back on the power nice and early, using the camber of the road to send the car to the outside, and now making its way into the cut in turns 3 and 4. Lifting off here before dropping onto the brakes, down from 4th down to 2nd through turn number 4 here, digging into the apex, we'll bring the car to the left and through the double right now as he heads through quarry. Seeing a little bit of oversteer there as he makes his way across the bumpy road surface and making his way through 6 and 7. Now getting ready for the triple left sequence of turns 8, 9 and 10. Flat out through 8, lift off through 9, keeping it right there at the top of 4th gear. And as he makes his way into development, turn number 10, lifting off a bit here in 5th gear, taking it up a gear to settle the car down. And now here comes the change. Downhill, over Skyline he goes, taps the brakes immediately. Got to keep tapping the brakes to keep the car pointed in a straight line. And coming into the dipper now, turn 14, 2nd gear, gets back on the power immediately as he heads to the kink of 15. Brings it over to the centre for the left-hander of 16, into the right-hander of 17, dabs the brakes once, down to 3rd gear, down to 2nd gear. And will he go down to 1st? Does he go through Forest Hill? No, he stays in 2nd to keep the car calm. And as he makes his way out turn 18 through 19, he goes, now it's full throttle all the way down towards the chase chicane. And looking at this, you'll see now it's all about just simply hoping that you've done it right coming out of Forest Hill, because every mile an hour matters here. And indeed, in the racing, we're going to be seeing some huge battles under slipstream into the chase. But through the right-hander of 20, he goes onto the brakes at 21, into the chase chicane as he brings it all the way down to 3rd gear, gets it nicely hooked up to the turn 21 apex. Through 22 he goes, nicely done indeed. And as he makes his way down towards 23 here, onto the brakes he goes once more, going in to Murray's corner, braking at approximately 80 metres from corner apex, 2nd gear. And as he makes his way back onto the power, it's a nice lap to be fair from Humberstone. And what's it going to be? A 207.191. It's not the fastest we've seen, but indeed it was a smooth lap, albeit with a little bit of an oversteer moment here or there. But you can't deny Glenn Humberstone really pushing it to the limit and looking to do his utmost. But as we now look to other drivers, and indeed our time tell, which is gradually populating, we do see Mike Pollard, for example, going P6, and we do have a fan of Mike Pollard there in the YouTube chat. I do believe that is Matty Hellenus, and I hope you're doing well, Matty, and thank you for tuning in as always. And also hello to Chris Edisford and also Matty Wild then. I hope you guys are doing well. And right now it's James Parker with a set provisional pole with just under half the qualifying session still to go. They haven't got many laps, and remember, as soon as we hit 8 minutes, all laps will be stopped immediately. They will not count for anything if they have not crossed the timeline. It is an immediate end to qualifying, not overtime where they can finish their current lap, so they've got to get it done. They've only effectively got 2 laps in order to deliver here, and so far it is James Parker who is the man on a mission to take overall pole and gold pole. But what about in the silver class, I hear you ask? Well, Travis Linscombe-Hatfield, where he's jumped to the pits, and Travis Linscombe-Hatfield has set an absolutely brilliant lap time of a 205.59, and Cameron Willesee right now 2nd in the silver class, P7 overall, 2 places down overall on Linscombe-Hatfield. He's currently only a 10th off, so it's close between the two of them. And as he makes his way down the hill, what can Cameron Willesee do here in order to upset the apple cart? Because Linscombe-Hatfield will not have another lap now, and we've got a large number of drivers who've opted not to set qualifying times, including Oliver Hughes, Weaver, Bickley, Darracott, Holmes, Hatchell, Lewis Willesee, and also Bamber. That's Simon Bamber. But to be fair, they could be going around on circuit at the moment and getting themselves set up. But if so, they're running out of time. In fact, they need to put their laps in now. As always, they'll not have time in order to do one right at the end of the session. But Willesee there moves up to P6, but it's not enough. And that will effectively mean that Cameron Willesee misses out on pole, and Travis Linscombe-Hatfield will take silver pole unless another driver can pull a surprise off. As we see here, Craig Shield making his way down the hill, heading down towards the chase chicane here with 1.5 minutes left on the clock. He'll get his lap in as James Parker goes even faster for the pole position overall in the gold class on a 204.207. Is there anything that man cannot do when it comes to qualifying? I do have to wonder sometimes, because he's put 4 tenths between himself and Emil Koopmans, and Jack Atkinson a further 5 tenths off almost. But as we see here, Shield making his way through the final corner. What's it going to be for him as he crosses the timeline? That'll be his final lap in, and he does not improve by looks of things, Craig Shield. So he'll be starting P17 at most, P6 in the silver class, as that is his qualifying session done and dusted. We do have, oh goodness me, Misha Berger getting it wrong and reversing down the hill here. I'm not sure what's happened to Misha Berger, other than the car is pointing the exact wrong way, and well, that's going to be a whack to the wall. There's no doubt about that, but it's not gone the way that Misha Berger has wanted it whatsoever. He's been caught on the mountain somewhere, but 30 seconds to go. Is anybody on a lap here and improving is the big question. Will Richard Simnor heading out to the final corner right now, the DCW Racing driver, P3 in the gold class going into this round, and P9 will be the best he can do overall. That is P8 in the gold class on the grid. Travis Linscombe-Hatfield will have Simnor between himself and Willesee, which is a nice bit of a buffer, and well, Atkinson has parked up P3's the highest. Well, that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and it is James Parker who takes overall pole and gold pole. Travis Linscombe-Hatfield, P8, takes silver pole. Let's take you to the grid. So our grid for round number 9 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Season 4 here today at the Bathurst circuit in Australia is as follows. James Parker taking pole position overall and in gold class with a 2:04.207 for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple, and he is joined on the front row by perhaps the unluckiest man in this series today, Emil Koopmans, who is looking for his big break. It never seems to go right, but he puts it P2 this time, one of his highest qualifying positions. In fact, I think it's his joint highest qualifying position of the season. Can he convert that into a podium finish or even the win? Jack Atkinson and Tim Darracott line up behind on row 2, with Corey Lazarus on his debut P5, joined by Mike Pollard for DCW Racing Blue P6, Stuart Bickley for DCW Racing Blue P7, joined by Travis Linscombe-Hatfield, the silver pole sitter P8, with Richard Simnor and Karen Willesee making up the 5th row there. Then we have in P11 Gordon Ramsay, joined by Misha Berger in P12. They line up together on row number 6, and they're followed up by the combination of Steve Hughes and Daniel Dan Weaver on the 7th row. Row number 8 consists of Ryan Davis and Lee Holmes, the 2 gold drivers there, the privateer ahead of the 88 Tech Racing Team Cyan driver, and you have Stephen Kershaw and Glenn Humberstone, the silver pairing, line up on row number 9. On row number 10, it's the silver pair Ashley Coverdale and Craig Schilt on his debut qualifying P20 overall, good luck to him, and Richard White and Simon Bamber line up together on row number 11. Well, then behind them they have Alistair Hatcher and Mark Oliver on row number 12, the silver pairing, followed up by their Lewis Willesee. Last but not least, P25 for Willesee Racing, but in the end a number of drivers opting not to set qualifying times. That's Simon Bamber, Alistair Hatcher, Mark Oliver and Lewis Willesee all deciding to stay in the pit and just going out there from the back of the grid, and that could, to be fair, be a smart move, because I suspect there might be a little bit of instant and carnage on lap number 1 if anybody gets it wrong over the mountain, and you do not want to be in the midfield when it goes wrong, I can tell you, because you've got very little time to react and the yellow flags are not normally out. But as the gridding process complete, we await the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out, away we go for round number 9 of the Porsche Cup Season 4 as James Parker gets a great start. Emil Koopmans, meanwhile, has to go immediately defensive into turn number 1, and with Atkinson flying off the line, but he can't make it count. And as they come on through, we've got a drive off. That's Linscombe-Hatfield going very deep and wide through Hell's Corner, and now they charge their way up the hill towards turn number 2. And as they do now, everybody will tuck into the toe here as they make the way on the long charge, and this is where we might see some initial overtaking opportunities. And speaking of that, Atkinson trying to go around the outside of Koopmans into 2. Koopmans defends hard here. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see that Misha Berger there holding what is Bickley. No, that's not Bickley, that's Ramsey with Bickley into the water turn 2. And as they make the way on up, we've got a driver getting it very wrong on the back of it. Oh, goodness me. And there's a major incident at turn number 2. Multiple drivers caught up. But meanwhile, Simon Bamber here side by side with Linscombe-Hatfield. He's going to go all the way around the outside. Well, that was very brave there on cold tyres, and Bamber finding the wall instead into the cutting. And that's not going to do the right side of the car any good. You can see the damage already picked up there with the front right tyre slightly out of its awning on the borders of what is the aerodynamic effect. But as they make the way through turn number 7 and 8 now, Bamber tucks back in and makes his way in the pursuit after Linscombe-Hatfield, losing out on a move versus the P2 driver in the silver class. But as they come for him at Finley Park, they stay nose to tail here and things calm down. But as they make the way through Skyline here, we look a little bit further up the order. Back to Misha Berger here with an absolutely flying start, 3 places gained, moving from P12 to P9 in the space of the first half of a lap, and it all came down to a great start off the line and then gaining the run up towards turn number 2. But now they make their way down the back straight here in the long run all the way down to the chase, and meanwhile we've got Craig Schilt into the wall there and what is Forest Elbow. We'll come back and find out what exactly happened shortly, but we look back to Misha Berger here, who's got Gordon Ramsay hot on his heels as they make their way down, but Ramsay backs out, and meanwhile Linscombe-Hatfield here battling with what is actually Coverdale as they make the way in towards turn number 20. Through the right and kink they go. Coverdale on the right, Linscombe-Hatfield on the left, and Coverdale backs out there for iRacing as they make the way through into the chase cam. Linscombe-Hatfield goes deep again. Oh, goodness me, he gets it wrong and it goes to the grass. It's not a great start for the silver driver as he brings himself on through and into the pits he goes. So after 1 lap, it is James Parker who leads ahead of Jack Atkinson in P2, followed by Tim Darracott in P3. Then you have Corey Lazarus gaining 1 place off the start, P4, followed by Mike Pollard, P5. And then we have Richard Simnor in P6 in hot pursuit of his teammate here as they make the way on up the hill. And then you have Karen Willesee in P7. He's your silver leader. He's gained at the start compared to most of the drivers in his class. He's gained massively as they make the way into turn number 2. Then we have Misha Berger in P8, followed by Gordon Ramsay in P9. And then Daniel Dan Weaver completes the top 10, with Stuart Bickley being best the rest in P11 ahead of Steve Hughes. And a mention of Steve Hughes here, where he's trying to put the find Stuart Bickley, can't quite find it at the moment, but Hughes moving up into P2 in the silver class, and whilst the Rabbit Hole Racing driver Travis Linscombe Hancock's not at the start he's wanted, Steve Hughes has done everything right so far as he makes his way through turns 5 and 6 and then the hill to 7. As they come on through the left hand here, you can see that Hughes right now under a bit of pressure from Lee Holmes behind, but again it's gold versus silver pressure here, and I don't think Steve Hughes will complain too much about it. Meanwhile, oh goodness, and Richard Simnor has turned around, he's jumped to the pit. Well, what has gone wrong for Richard Simnor? We'll find out shortly. We've got Simnor and Glenn Humberstone both in the pit lane, and Simnor turned around them at Fulham Park. It sounds like he's gone a bit deep and wide, and the car's kicked round on him, but we'll take a look back very shortly. We just waited to see here as I try to make the way on down towards Forest Elba, whether any moves are coming. Well, here's Emil Koopmans, who clatters his way on past there in the run to the Dipper versus Lewis Willisey going up the inside through turns 12 and 13. A bit unconventional, but I like it. And as he makes his way down towards Forest Elbow here, well, Koopmans, remember, qualified P2, had a difficult start, had to go to the pit, and now he's looking to make his way back up the order, but he's got a long way to go, and he hasn't got long to do it. He's got 8 minutes still, plus the final lap, and his next target is Mark Oliver here, who he's going to absolutely sail past. He hopes as he makes his way down towards the chase. He looks around the outside, he's going to get it done, and Mark Oliver does not fight it too hard as they make the way in towards turns 21 and 22. But as they come on through here, we look up towards what is Misha Berger here. Right now, does have to continue hold off Gordon Ramsay, and Gordon Ramsay hot on the heels of his rival, but no way through at the moment. Instead, having to focus a little bit more on Daniel Dan Weaver, and this gives us an opportunity as things calm down for a brief moment for us to take a look back at what happened on those opening laps, starting with the instant at turn 2 towards the back of the field. Well, this was between Glenn Humberstone and Simon Bamber, we do believe. Now, keep your eyes on the ATX Racing Team Cyan machine. Oh, goodness me. And Bamber there. Well, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but it looks like Humberstone and Bamber came together, and then Humberstone went round, and that's not the way anybody wanted it to happen. We take another look back, and well, this was Simon Bamber, who you'll see, I do well, no, in fact, Simon Bamber there was not caught up in that. No, he ended up getting caught up afterwards, so it was Glenn Humberstone on the back of another driver, and then Simon Bamber had to take evasive action in the UKSimRacing privateer machine, but he managed to steer clear of trouble. And as we return to live pictures for a brief moment, we do see it, Stuart Bickley here chasing after Daniel Dan Weaver on the live pictures on lap number 3 as they make their way through McPhillamy, and behind Emil Koopmans is still gaining ground, it should be said, now up to P17 overall, but he's got a long way to go before he starts fighting against gold class peers. His first target will be Brian Davies, who's in P13 by comparison, and as we do see Bickley right now backing out a little bit versus Weaver for the simple reason there's no real way to make an overtake unless the driver gets it wrong coming out the Dipper in the run to Forest Elba. It's all about the run out there. I think for a brief moment there was that. Well, there's Ryan Davies, but just ahead of him, I do believe we do have one of the ATX Tech race machines. That was Lee Holmes, in fact, who had a bit of a moment with the wall on the exit of Forest Elbow, and I wonder if Lee Holmes right now might be nursing a little bit of damage on the right-hand side suspension with that whack to the wall as he makes his way down towards 20 and in towards the chicane. Whereas he does, Emil Koopmans sets up another move here versus Craig Shield. Shield on the left, Koopmans on the right, and well, I think Shield's not going to battle this one too hard as they reach the halfway point in terms of time duration for this sprint race. He's going to come on through, and meanwhile, we look back to Richard White here, battling with Simon Bamber, the focus of our conversation only moments ago, and White, well, on the outside here, and Bamber just out-dragging his rival in the, Bamber, I should say, out-dragging his rival in the long run down. And as they make the way into the braking zone here, Simon Bamber gets ahead and clear. But meanwhile, we look up to Gordon Ramsay here, and we can see here the Saints driver from Scotland under pressure. In fact, he's made the move versus he's under attack, I should say, from Daniel Dan Weaver. And Weaver's going to try and go round the outside here versus Ramsay. And Ramsay, I would not be surprised if he tries to make this as hard as possible into Griffiths Bend. Through the right hand they go, and Ramsay parks it nicely on the apex there. And he gets the car back on the pad just in time to force his rival to have to back out as they make the way into the cutting. And right now the Saints driver definitely on form here today as he comes through the cutting and now into the right hand of Corey Bend. Turns 5 and 6 he goes, but as he comes charged on through, we will very shortly give you a look at what happened to one of our other drives earlier on, and that was, unless I'm very much mistaken, we are trying to find the replay footage with regards to our driver who was spun at McPhillamy, and that was Richard Simnor, who had that major moment. And in fact, here we go, we do have the ability to find out what happened. Oh, goodness being Simnor there. We're just catching the tail end of the way he hit the wall at turn number 9, and as he made his way into 10, the car was already damaged, and he tried to carry the speed through, but the car went round on him, and he could only jump back to the pits in the end, understandably so for DCW Racing Red's driver, in the fact I think that car was severely handicapped after the whack to the wall coming out of 9 and not in a drivable condition, but not the way he's wanted it to go, and now he's going to have to focus all his energies on the feature race. But return to the pictures, we still have 4 minutes of racing plus the final lap to go, and I believe that Mark Oliver's been involved in an incident further down the order, or at least that's what my timing data is telling me. But as we continue to focus on the live pictures here, we can see Gordon Ramsay clearing it away from Weaver for the time being and trying to get back on the back of Misha Berger as they make the way into turn 20 at the chase. But as they come through at turn 21, turn 2, and head on towards what is Murray's corner at turn 23, no change at the moment. Misha Berger definitely struggling for exit speed coming out the chase chicane. You can see the car just not able to get the power down as comfortably as Ramsay. Ramsay seems to be a lot more comfortable in power deployment in these second and third gear corners, and that's what's getting him close, but not close enough to make the move. But speaking of being close enough to make the move, goodness me, I thought Simon Bamble was going to take the rear off of Oliver's car, then in fact he has his rear taken off by Oliver instead as they made their way into the braking zone, and that is very unfortunate for Bamber, and I would not be surprised if there might be a few words muttered in that cockpit right now as White versus Linscombe Hatfield, and Linscombe Hatfield getting the elbow out there from what we can see by White. Richard White, they're taking no prisoners coming out through the chase, and well, I think Linscombe Hatfield may not be too pleased with that one either. 2 drivers, they're 2 major protagonists of the silver class, both having upsets at the same corner, and meanwhile we return back to Daniel Dan Weaver, who has found his way past Gordon Ramsay in the meanwhile off camera. We'll take a look back at that very shortly, but he's moved up into P7 in the gold class, P8 here with not long to go, and as we ride on board the gearbox here of Dan Weaver as he makes his way through 7 into 8 and 9, Bickley right now is so close, he's had to back out there going into turn 9, and you can see Gordon Ramsay here staying well close to the back of Daniel Dan Weaver. I think Ramsay might be running a little bit more downforce compared to his peers, so he hasn't got the straight line speed, but my goodness has he got the confidence through the medium and slow speed corners. The car looks absolutely planted as they come down through the depth of Ramsay. I'd say that almost hit, in fact he does hit the wall there, coming through what was the dipper into Forest Elbow, and Ramsay has to go defensive versus Bickley. He looks up swiping the front left brake, but he just holds on and misses the one on the exit of Forest Elbow here. Gordon Ramsay right now in the danger zone in terms of that car is on a knife edge, and his positioning in the top 10 is on a knife edge as well as he makes his way down the back straight, down Conrod straight. The name's eluded me for so long, but Conrad it is, and as they make the way down towards 21 and 22, you can see here Gordon Ramsay right now under major pressure as they head into the braking zone, but Bickley not close enough to force the issue this time around, but I don't think it's going to be long given the fact that we're on to the final lap with the race leader crossing the line. So look at my commentary box winner James Parker crossing the line and goes purple on a 205.03. He's absolutely pushing it up to 11, and as they make the way through the final corner here, now Gordon Ramsay's got 1 lap between himself and P9. He'll be gutted that he's not fighting for P8. That is of course reverse grid pole for the feature, but still P9 would be a good starting position, and as he makes his way through turn number 1, he goes deep and wide and it's into the wall. Coming out of Hell's Corner, and the corner has claimed another victim, and Gordon Ramsay's got to be careful as we do see what is, I believe, Kershaw avoiding what is Ramsay's stricken car. He brings himself back up to speed, and now he's got Emil Koopmans closing up as they make the way up the first straight in the run to the mountain. But meanwhile, we look a little bit further down the order, well, in fact we were going to, but we're going to stay here because Koopmans right now closing up. Can he make the move here into Griffiths Bend? I don't think so. I think he's too far back, and he's going to have to wait and prey on his target of Gordon Ramsay later on the lap. Although, will he get the run here going into the cutting? I think it's going to be very brave for the Dutchman to try it, but to be fair, if we know he's brave, if we know he's known for one thing, it's bravery, and he's right there all over the back of Ramsay as we ride on board here with Koopmans as he tries to make his way into P14. It'll be P11 in the gold class, but he wants every point he can and every place he can as he makes his way through turns 8, 9 and 10, and so close he could reach out and touch the rear ring of Ramsay's car. But as he comes into McPhillamy Park here in the left hand, you see he has to back out slightly because he just does not have the front end downforce anymore. Into Skyline they go, and he's got to time it right, because if he gets too close too soon, he'll have to back out prematurely, and he needs to run out the dipper into what is Forest Elbow and then the run down the back straight. But as he comes into the aforementioned elbow here, he looks up the inside. It's a little bit of a snake under braking, but he gets it done. Ramsey sees him coming and opens the door, and Koopmans is ahead for now. But Ramsey will have to run down the back straight. Meanwhile, however, we have to cut to James Parker because he heads into the final corner. The checker flag awaits him, and he will be your winner for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple in both the overall and gold driver classifications. It will then be Jack Atkinson P2, Tim Darracott P3, Corey Lazarus on his debut in a splendid P4, then Mike Pollard P5, Karen Willesee will be your silver winner, continuing that momentum from Imola, Misha Berger P7, and it will be Daniel Dan Weaver P8, followed by Stuart Bickley P9, Lee Holmes P10, Ryan Davies best the rest in P11, and then Stephen Kershaw comes on through to take P2 in the silver class, P12 on track, with Emil Koopmans there P13, finishing ahead of Gordon Ramsay. We will take a look back at that battle right at the end, and then Gordon Ramsay P14, Steve Hughes completes the podium for the silver class P15 ahead of Ashley Coverdale. And we see here crossing the line P16 for Simran Racing. Lewis Willesee P17 will come on through very shortly. And then we do have Travis Linscombe Hatfield here coming on through to complete what has been a nightmare race for the P2 driver in the silver class. And the Rabbit Hole Racer driver coming home P18 overall, P6 in class in the end. And that's not going to help his championship campaign. Richard White P19. And then Simon Bamber coming home P20 ahead of Richard Simnor, who's got a little way to go yet as he makes his way down through into the chase here from Conrad and makes way under braking. And as he goes through the left into right here, Craig Shill will be P22. And then we have Glenn Humberstone finishing a lap down, and Alistair Hatcher and Mark Oliver both finishing in the pit lane at least one lap down. But we will take a quick look back at the battle between what was Emil Koopmans and Gordon Ramsay right at the end. And, well, this was the start of it, you'll remember. Koopmans making this absolutely bold move under braking into Forest Elbow. A beautiful move, it has to be said. But then as they made the way on down the back straight, you can see here Gordon Ramsay close. But was he close enough to look for the effective pass here? Well, I don't think so. He was initially, and he continued to stay in the slipstream all the way through. But this, I think, proves the point we were saying about Gordon Ramsay in that he's running a lot of downforce, because you can see he's so close behind Koopmans, but he has no overspeed in the end. Koopmans could just place himself, as unfortunately we do have to cut away there. We've run out of time in the sprint race, and we have to cut to the warm-up for what is the feature race. But let's just take you through those race results once again very quickly. We'll bring them up on screen for you, and you can see here in round number 9, James Parker taking the overall win in the sprint race at Bathurst ahead of Jack Atkinson and Tim Darracott. They make your overall podium, and Parker, of course, your gold winner. Corey Lazarus, Mike Pollard there completing the top 5. Cameron Willesee P6, your silver winner. Misha Berger P7, Daniel Dan Weaver P8, Stuart Bickley P9, Lee Holmes P10, and Ryan Davies best the rest P11. But as we come onto the individual class classifications, we can see in the gold class the same top 3 as for the overall classification, and Corey Lazarus and Mike Pollard following behind, and James Parker with this win really on his way to potentially seal the gold championship, or at least have one hand on the championship title come the end of tonight, with an advantage into the final round at the Nürburgring in 2 weeks' time. And then P6, Misha Berger, Daniel Dan Weaver P7, Stuart Bickley P8, Lee Holmes P9, and Ryan Davies P10. Emil Koopmans, best the rest there P11, Gordon Ramsay P12, and Richard Simnor P13 in a race that he perhaps didn't want to go that way, no doubt about it. The same for Ramsay and Koopmans. They'll be bouncing back in the feature, I'm sure. And then we come on to the silver class here, and we can see that in the silver class, it was Cameron Willesee in the end, taking the win by 12.2 seconds over Stephen Kershaw, with Steve Hughes P3. And in fact, there, with Stephen Kershaw picking up that P2, he'll be absolutely pleased as punch with that, and one of his best performances of the season, no doubt about it. Ashley Coverdale P4, Lewis Willesee P5, Travis Linscombe Hatfield P6, Richard White P7, Simon Bamber P8, Craig Shill P9, not the strongest debut for Craig Shill, went a bit wrong in the midpoint of the race, Mark Oliver P10, Glenn Humberstone P11, and Alistair Hatcher finishing a lap down, much like Humberstone and Oliver, and they'll be looking to all come back strong in the next race. And speaking of the next race, well, it's only approximately a couple of seconds away before we head to the grid. And, well, as we bring the checker flag out here on the warm-up session, let's wait and see how they all get on in round number 10, the feature here at Mount Panorama. So as our drivers are ushered to the grid then for the purposes of the feature race, let's take you through the grid once more. The grid for round 10 is as follows with the top 8 inversion. Daniel Dan Weber takes reverse grid at pole for DCW Racing Blue, and he is joined by Misha Berger by the Saints in P2. Then we have on row number 2, Cameron Willesee, the silver winner in race number 1 here today, starting P3. He started on the second row a number of times now. Can he bring home an overall podium, or will Mike Pollard in the DCW Racing Blue gold class car bring on home the final step of the overall podium? Corey Lazarus starts off at row number 3, joined by Tim Darracott, the two privateers side by side on that row. Then it's Jack Atkinson and James Parker starting off the 4th row, and behind them on row number 5 we have Stuart Bickley and Lee Holmes. Then it's Ryan Davis and Stephen Kershaw who make up row number 6, the second place silver driver there, and behind them on the grid on row number 7 it's Emil Koopmans and Gordon Ramsay. Then we have Steve Hughes and Ashley Coverdale in P15, P16. The two silver drivers make up your 8th row, with Lewis Willesee and Travis Linscombe Hatfield, the silver pair, line up on row number 9, and row 10 continuing the silver theme with Richard White and Simon Bamber, the two privateers, completing the top 20. Richard Simnor from DCW Racing at Red starts P21, and this is the race where he'll be looking to cut his way through the order as quickly as possible, with Craig Shaw alongside him on the 11th row starting P22 for ATX Tech Racing Team at Siam. And then we have Mark Oliver and Glenn Humberstone on the 12th row, and last but not least, P25. Alistair Hatcher from ATX Tech Racing Team Purple starts off, and our final grid slot in the number 964 car for the silver class. But with the grid and now getting set, we do wait to go racing once again, and well, how's it all going to play out this time in race number 2 here? Round 10, of course. And the tradition that we have seen in these feature races, it becomes a game of tyre preservation, where all of our drivers will do their utmost to try and protect the tyres early on and then go on the offensive late. If they manage it, then we do normally see some drivers really come alive in terms of pace right towards the end of the race. But conversely, if they do not and push too hard early on, then it can go very, very wrong as the pace falls off right at the end. But the gridding process is almost complete. We are just waiting for Lewis Willesee and Alistair Hatcher to take to the grid, and in fact, they have not. The gridding process is complete, and we await the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for round number 10. Here is Daniel Dan Weber, looks to have a strong start as they make the way in towards turn number 1, but looking further behind we can see there Jack Atkinson flying off the line as Misha Berger goes around the outside but can't find the space versus Daniel Dan Weber. But Darracott meanwhile battling with Atkinson in the run through one, and Atkinson already up to P6 and Lazarus up to P4 as they make the way up this hill for the first time. Now as they do here, you can see Pollard versus Willesee, and I can see that Pollard right now on the inside here is going to get the job done nice and early as they make the way on through. That was Misha Berger, my apologies there, and Pollard on the inside, we should say Corey Lazarus, and Pollard gets it done in the defence here as they make the way up towards turn number 3 into the cutting, and as they do, Atkinson here falling in to formation but gaining 2 places off the very start, as we've had a little bit of a tamer start to this race compared to what was round number 9, the sprint here today, as they make the way up through Quarry Bend and up towards turn 7 through to 10. But as they come charge on through, Mark Oliver's been involved in an instance where, to understand it, a whack to the wall there at the cutting, but we look from him back up to what is the run into McPhilly Park here, coming through turn number 9. This is Ryan Davies right now. He's got Emil Koopmans behind him, and Emil Koopmans right now is flying like a hornet's nest in terms of he has got an absolute sting in the tail, and that is he wants to get his way up into the top 10 as soon as possible. Koopmans already gaining 1 place. He's got Gordon Ramsay right behind him, and of course the two of them battling to the very end in race number 1. Both having misfortunate races, and Ryan Davies now has to bear the brunt of the pair of them wanting to come on through. As they make the way through Forest Elba here, you can see Davies caught between a rock and a hard place. He pushes it too hard, he'll go into the back of Bickley. Conversely, Koopmans right on his heels here, and Koopmans looking for the move as they make the way down Conrod, and as they do in the long charge, well, we do firstly look a little bit further up the order to Pollard here, who is under some pressure from Jack Atkinson behind, and Atkinson looking for the move, he can't quite find it. Meanwhile, Koopmans is trying to make the move here on Ryan Davies for P11, and up the inside he goes. That is effectively P10 in the gold class. A little bit of a look up there from Koopmans, but he gets it done and gains another place on his own lap. Meanwhile, Gordon Ramsay not close enough. Meanwhile, Pollard on the inside here defending versus Atkins, in fact making a counter-attack as they go on to lap number 2, and Pollard not giving in as they head across the timeline and on to lap 2. Into Hell's Corner they go once again, and it's still Pollard versus Atkinson through turn 1. Atkinson on the wider outside line here, he's got the space to play with, and as they make the way on the long run now up towards Griffiths Bend at turn number 2, you can see that Pollard has tucked back in here. He's not got the momentum, and again
Pollard, I think, much like Ramsey, is running a little bit more downforce on the car, and that's just cost him in the run on the straights, because Atkinson right now is flying when he puts the pedal to the metal. Meanwhile, Pollard just a little bit slower on the take, but I say about Gordon Ramsay, he's up the inside there versus Ryan Davies and gains another place. He moves up into P12, P11 in the gold class. They make the way in to the cutting once again, but behind you can see there Richard Simnor also trying to make the move, and actually Coverdale to gain overall position but not class position as they come on through turn number 4 and head into Quarry Bend at 5 and 6. But as they come through the double right now, Simnor has to back off here. There's no real way through until the run into Forest Elbow, but as they come charging on through the long left sequence of 7 through to 10, I wouldn't be surprised if Simnor tries to pressure his rivals in front into a mistake at Mavului Park in order to gain himself a bit of momentum into Skyline, but not close enough in the end. But look at this, Stephen Kershaw meanwhile has got an absolute train of silvers behind him. He's silver P2 right now. Meanwhile, Simon Bamber, Steve Hughes and Ashley Coverdale are all within 2 seconds of him, if not closer, from start to finish. And as they make the way down to Forest Elbow here, well, it's the long train, and who will pick up P2 in the end? That'll be the challenge, or the question if you will. Meanwhile, speaking of challenges here, well, you can see that as they make their way side by side down Conrad, it's Darracott versus where's there Parker, and as they make the way on through, Parker of course your winner in race number 1. He started P8 and he's now moved up to P7, and we know that Parker is a slow starter in his feature race, and he likes to protect the car nice and early on and really put the hammer down in the final 10 minutes, and that's exactly what Parker's doing here, picking up a place calmly. And now we can see that Darracott has got Lee Holmes behind him trying to come on through is the ATEC Tech Racing Team Cyan driver as they make the way on down. Meanwhile, we can see here that Kershaw versus Steve Hughes, and Stephen Kershaw has been passed by Steve Hughes. Now, will there be the counter-attack here? I don't think so. It's actually Coverdale tries to go around the outside for SimRacing. Instead, goes overly deep, and Richard Simnor picks up an overall position in return. The gold driver gradually siphoning his way through the silvers as they make the way into Hell's Bend once again. But we take a look back at what happened between what was, I believe, only moments ago, Steve Hughes and Kershaw. Well, this was how it played out. In fact, Kershaw, they're getting it wrong. Stephen Kershaw going deep out 21 into 22 and missing the apex of 22, took to the grass, and that's what led to the sequence of events afterwards. So as we return to the live pictures here, I can see that Richard Simnor now on the live picture trying to cut his way on the inside there to Stephen Kershaw, but having the door shut on him there before Simnor can get his nose in, and understandable having to back out as a result. Meanwhile, Glenn Humberstone here, well, after a difficult race number 1, he's all over the back of his peer of what is Craig Shield in the ATEC Tech racing machine as well. And Craig Shield not having a great start to his day at Bathurst either in terms of racing, and Glenn Humberstone having to stay in formation right now as they make the way through turns 5 and 6. Meanwhile, and going from silvers towards the back of the field to one silver who finds himself very far apart at the front of the field. Here's Cameron Willesee from Willesee Racing, P3 overall, and right now, well, he is the cork in the proverbial bottle, because that's Jack Atkinson, followed by Pollard, followed by Lazarus, followed by James Parker, all in the run within 2 seconds of the back of Cameron Willesee right now. And if you're getting flashbacks to Spa-Francorchamps, well, I don't blame you, because that's exactly how it was for Cameron Willesee at Spa-Francorchamps, and he held on all the way to the finish, and right now he's got pressure. But here comes Atkinson looking around the outside in the run down Conrad. I think Willesee's not going to fight this. I think the risk is too high to want to get greedy for an overall podium. I think he'll let it go as they make the way down towards the braking zone. But will this shake anything else up here? Well, here's Lee Holmes battling side by side with Koopmans, who's found his way on through in the run out of Forest Elbow in the drag race down towards the chase chicane. And now Koopmans has gained another place, and Koopmans right now is flying. If it were not for the fact he was making overtakes, he would be the fastest man on circuit. The Dutchman is driving possessed right now, and you can understand why. He has always had bad luck. Every round it has gone wrong, and he does not want that trend to continue as he makes his way into Hell's Corner here. He wants to pick up a P5 as a minimum, or a top 5 we should say, in the gold class. And as he makes his way up the hill once more, his next target is Tim Darracott, only 4 attempts ahead of him. But as they make the way in towards turn number 2 shortly, we look a little bit further ahead of this queue to see here Cameron Willesee now has Mike Pollard up his inside, and Pollard there backs out. He's not come to under the brakes. They're going into turn 2 on that inside line, and to be fair, there's not much grip in that braking zone on the inside line, and I think Pollard there playing it safe and recognising he can make the move much later on. He does not need to take chunks out of the brakes or the front tyres right now. But as they make the way through the cutting and into Quarry Bend here, we look a little bit further back in this group, and we ride on board with Koopmans here as he goes charging through 7. And now, well, if you're scared of roller coaster rides, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry for this, but you're going to have to grin and bear it, because this is how close it gets. in Porsche Cup racing over the mountain of Bathurst. They make their way through what is turn number 10 here, and oh goodness me, it looks like we've got a driver going a little bit deep there, and that in fact was Darracott almost losing it in the run into Skyline coming out of the Fenway Park, and Koopmans out on the outside had to back out, but as they make their way down through the dipper and in towards Forest Elbow shortly, Koopmans so close you could literally fit a knife, and only that between the two of them to cut the tension as they make their way down into Forest Elbow. Meanwhile, Lee Holmes, oh goodness me, Koopmans and Lee Holmes both had a whack to the wall. Koopmans more, Koopmans is pushing it hard, and Lee Holmes as well, and here you can understand for Lee Holmes because he does not want Bickley to come on through anytime soon as they make their way down Conrod once more. As they come charging down towards the chase here, halfway down the straight already, Pollard comes on through versus Willisey. Although I say that, I think Cameron Willisey here is going to try and outbrake his gold rival, but in the end has to back on out. Meanwhile, Corey Lazarus here, the number 4 driver here, the privateer, now looking for that move on the silver leader, and they're all gradually coming past the silver leader, albeit little by little, and it's not without Cameron Willisey putting up a bit of a fight as they make the way into the final corner and onto another lap. Meanwhile, further back, here comes Richard Simnor looking for the move, an overall move versus Stephen Kershaw. He goes up the inside for P16, he finds it as Kershaw there gives him the space on the inside, and they make the way back up to speed in the run onto lap number 5. But Richard Simnor here continuing to pick his way through the field, and I think he might be enjoying it a little bit. He's not raced against his class peers, but at the same time still enjoying having the opportunity to do some overtaking and battling with the silvers. And as they make the way up the hill once more here, Richard Simnor's next target will be Steve Hughes, a silver driver P3, before then making his way up to P12 gold driver P14 overall of Ryan Davies. And here is Ryan Davies right now, the privateer making his way through the right-hander, and I think it said on the side of the car there, hot bath, and if so, he's definitely going to want a hot bath after this one, because I think he'll want it to relax. But as he makes his way into the double left of the cutting here, and we meanwhile look a little bit further back up the order, and in particular to Tim Darracott here, the privateer from Effect Esports, who right now is under pressure from Koopmans, and we saw Koopmans only a lap ago look for the move around the outside of Skyline, and he had to back out there. He was considering it, there's no doubt about it, but now I think he thought to himself, you know what, I've still got over 20 minutes of racing to go, I can't afford to lose the car yet. And as they make the way down in towards the dipper shortly, Darracott has got the Flying Dutchman right behind him and breathing down his neck. Well, there's nothing worse than that when you're making your way down the mountain, and already there you can see that Parker looks up the inside, and there's a little bit of contact there versus Lazarus, and in return now this is going to make it 2 by 2 as they come down through the kink of 19 onto Conrod they go, and Darracott gains, but look at Koopmans, he can't find the way on through, he has to go side by side versus Parker here, and now Darracott is going to be the friend of his enemy in terms of making their way down towards what is the chase chicane, and he helps Koopmans through, but will Koopmans put it up the inside? No, he backs out there, but Koopmans I think will be slightly grateful that he was given the toe by Darracott, and they've made their way ahead of Parker, and Parker there in a fortuitous move versus Lazarus, he could not make it count. Instead Corey Lazarus there able to hold on to P6 overall, P5 in the gold class, and as a result now Darracott and Koopmans going through and put 2 more places between Parker and his run into the top 5 of the gold class. But as they make the way onto another lap here, it's only building up more and more. Remember, we have still got 19 minutes to go, and every little moment like that right now will come back twofold to haunt our drivers in terms of damage and the time degradation they pick up as they make their way deeper and deeper into this race. And right now, as we look a bit further back, one driver we have not talked about since really the start of the race, Travis Linscombe Hatfield here, the Rabbit Hole Racing driver, number 15 driver on circuit. Oh goodness me, and we had to cut across that, but we've got a driver off there in the rear of our picture, and I believe that is Craig Schill, who's had a nasty moment coming out of Hell's Corner, and the car's gone round. But meanwhile, an even bigger nasty moment. What on earth has happened here? Cameron Willisey and also Corey Lazarus both going slow, both at the cutting. Lazarus is going very slowly on the inside, they're trying to stay out of the way, but it is pandemonium on the mountain right now as Cameron Willisey and Corey Lazarus have both been involved in an incident of some description. I just can't tell you what exactly's happened until we get a look back, but they've both fallen a long way away from grace right now, both of them outside of the top 10 overall. Cameron Willisey still the leader of the silver class, but look who's behind him. It's Simon Bamber Peter in the silver P12 overall, and the privateer from UKSimRacing right now right there and hunting down the win, and I think he wants to buck the trend of wins only going to Cameron Willisey. double dirty Travis Linscombe Hatfield as they make the way through Forest Elbow and down onto Conrod. But what on earth has happened? We will find out very shortly for you. We've got a replay coming up as they make the way on down the Conrod Straight, and we can see a Bamber. Well, he's got a car that is unimpinged with regards to aerodynamic damage, and meanwhile Willisey here with damaged bodywork. I wouldn't be surprised that car's making a bigger profile in the air compared to what he wants it to do, as we see Simon Bamber just flies on through there and takes the lead of the silver class as they come into the chase. But meanwhile Stephen Kershaw going a bit slowly there, coming down what is Conrad into the chase. This is Travis Linscombe Hatfield, and Linscombe Hatfield gains another place here. And right now the Rabbit Hole Racing driver surely has got the team principal on the radio to him, tell him you have got to push right now because Cameron Willisey has got it wrong and he is dropping places. He's only 5 places ahead, and Linscombe Hatfield here has a huge opportunity to turn around a dismal round 9 with a fantastic round 10. If he can get into P2 and get ahead of Cameron Willisey, it will gain him strides. But meanwhile we look up to Tim Darracott here running P5 overall in gold class versus Emil Koopmans. Koopmans on the right of your picture, Darracott on the left, and you can see here now the tables are turned and it is Koopmans versus Darracott without Parker intervening, and Koopmans goes around the outside there and makes it look like clockwork as he makes his way in towards the cutting here. And that's no disrespect to Tim Darracott, he defended it, but Koopmans again just so much confidence in his ability to go around the outside of Griffiths Bend, and he picks up the place there. And Emil Koopmans right now one of the biggest gainers since the start of this race, gaining 8 places overall, only falling second in the places gained category to Simon Bamber, your silver leader, now P11 overall from P20 on the grid after a difficult round number 9, race number 1, however you want to say it. And as they make the way at Room at Villamy right now, Koopmans is trying to press on after Pollard. Mike Pollard 2.5 seconds up the road, and Koopmans is not done yet. He is looking for a podium here, and well, who can blame him? But meanwhile, we do look from them to what happened moments ago between Corey Lazarus and Cameron Willisey. Well, this was the run into what was the cutting, and as they made the way under braking it, Cameron Willisey goes deep. Oh, goodness me, and Corey Lazarus there, I think the rear stepped out and he took Cameron Willisey with him. We take another look back from an alternative camera here as they made the way into the braking zone, and there it was, a small tap as he got onto the brakes there. Corey Lazarus just trying to get the steering to centre, but a little bit too late before he got on the brakes, and in the end clipping Cameron Willisey, and both drives going to the wall and both picking up severe damage on the cars there. And I don't think there was any malice intended from Corey Lazarus. You could see what he was trying to do, but in the end he just did it a little bit too soon for what the car was capable of at the time, and in the end it's not worked out. But meanwhile, speaking of things working out, as we return to live pictures, here is Ryan Davies looking up the inside of Steve Hughes as they make the way on through, and also Cameron Willisey, and he gains the place, and Ryan Davies coming through. In fact, Cameron Willisey, since we've come back, is going quite slow by comparison with his peers around him, and he continues to pull away as that is Steve Hughes cutting his way up the inside of Cameron Willisey. And Steve Hughes now up into P2 in the silver class here, and Cameron Willisey is dropping like a stone, but he doesn't want to pit, he does not want to lose track position. And as they make the way up towards turn number 2 in the long charge here, we can see Richard Simnor looking at Ryan Davies there. I think trying to say to him very early, look, I haven't had many gold drives to play with all racing tonight, but I can see you and I'm coming for you whether you like it or not. And I think right now Ryan Davies, if he wasn't gulping in that cockpit in terms of what's coming, he will be very shortly. And Simnor looks up the inside and he gets it done there. Very brave stuff for Richard Simnor, and as he makes his way up position into P9, now heading through Quarry Bender, I think Ryan Davies is going to look at that and think, what on earth just happened? Well, would you believe it? Richard Simnor went for it and he got it as they make the way through turn at number 9 up towards 10. Meanwhile, Steve Hughes here tucked in behind Ryan Davies is wanting Ryan Davies, I think, to get a move on because the Rabbit Hole Racing driver's got Cameron Willisey behind and he wants to break clear here as they make the way over the crest of the skyline and down towards the dipper they go. 14 minutes left on the clock, and we've got Emil Koopmans, in fact, who's just jumped to the pit lane. Well, that's happened off camera, and say it's not so, I think Koopmans has been in the woods. We take a look back here, and well, into the wall he had gone at what was there, I believe that's the cutting where it's gone wrong for Koopmans. We can't exactly tell you what's happened. No, he's had a whack to the wall, it would seem, and well, I think that says it all for Koopmans. We do try and find out exactly what happened. well, no, we can't find out. Just Koopmans in the wall at what was the cutting, I do believe. But we return to live pictures now, and it's gone so very wrong for him. Meanwhile, we cut back immediately here, and it's the two silver protagonists of the championship battle. And Linscombe Hatfield goes deep and onto the grass, and Karen Willisey was never going to give it up. But I think that Linscombe Hatfield feels like he was given a small tap which sent him wide. I think Karen Willisey would say that was just a small racing instant contact, and Hatfield might have been carrying a bit too much speed. But thankfully, I'm not going to be the steward's booth if it does go to the stewards, because the Rabbit Hole Racing driver here, he's been elbowed out multiple times over the course of tonight at the chase chicane, and he will not be happy the fact that his championship rival, the championship leader, and may have, in his opinion, just given him the elbow. Of course, we're not going to pass judgment on that, but meanwhile, we do take a look a little bit further down the and Corey Lazarus here, well, he's come out of the pits and got a prepared car and going once again, and right now down in P19 chasing after Richard White. He's going to see how far he can climb up the order now after a difficult start to this race. Meanwhile, Stephen Kershaw here battling with Karen Willisey, and he's making his way on through. It's a Kershaw going around the outside of Karen Willisey through Griffiths Bend up into the cutting here, and as they break their way in 12 minutes still to go, and the Briton right now gaining the place. Karen Willisey is definitely feeling as though the race is falling away from him, but he's still ahead of his main championship rival right now, which will benefit him. But of course, the Travis Linscombe Hatfield, he will be trying to come through as soon as possible. He's only 2 seconds behind all this, and if he can come on through, then he'll go hunting after Kershaw and Steve Hughes, because I can tell you at the moment, Travis Linscombe Hatfield on a clear lap is the second fastest silver driver after Simon Bamber, who right now in P9 overall is enjoying the race of his life at the Mount Panorama circuit. But as they make the way on down around here, still plenty else happening out of the circuit, and as they push all the way through and down towards Forest Elbow here, I can tell that Stuart Bickley meanwhile has found his way past Lee Holmes, and here is Stuart Bickley as they make the way down Conrod. And let's take a look back at what's happened to that move. Well, it was a lap ago in the run down Conrod, and well, Stuart Bickley here on the inside effectively at turn number 20 when they get to it, and you can see Lee Holmes on the right of your picture, and it very gradually happened, but in the end Bickley getting ahead and Lee Holmes not able to find a way on back, and Bickley cutting across there in order to set himself up if he needs to the defensive line into the chase. But in the end, Lee Holmes not close enough to consider sending it on the inside, and instead deferring to the default racing line. But as we return to the live pictures now with just over 10 minutes remaining, indeed we've still got a third of the racing to go. We've got drivers in the pit lane. In fact, we have got, I believe, at least 5 retirements, if not 6 right now, including Tim Darracott, Emil Koopmans, Craig Shield, Ashley Coverdale, Mark Oliver and Alistair Hatcher. And Ashley Coverdale currently parked up in the pit lane. I'm not sure if they're trying to fix the car and get it back out of the circuit, or whether it will be a retirement, but the Mountain has claimed many a driver today so far as they continue to make the way on through. Meanwhile, and very well noted there by Patrick Falconer, we shouldn't ignore it, Daniel Dan Weaver continues to lead as they make the way on around him. The DCW Racing blue driver from Germany in the 30 car right now does have some company behind him in the form of Jack Atkinson, but we need to cut away quickly because something absolutely horrific's happened between Glenn Humberstone and Lewis Willisey are coming out of the final corner. They both seem to have survived it, but what exactly has happened, I'm not sure. We will find out very shortly. In fact, we've got a replay coming now. Well, this was only moments ago, and that's Glenn Humberstone in the foreground of your camera shot as our cameraman focuses on him coming through the corner. Well, Glenn Humberstone there goes round, loses the rear of the car, and then Lewis Willisey does the same. So both of them in a bit of a synchronised moment, getting it wrong coming out of Murray's corner, nothing more than that. We now return to live pictures, and Glenn Humberstone up the inside there briefly of Lewis Willisey and Corey Lazarus as well. Meanwhile, Gordon Ramsay now, as we return to live pictures, going slowly coming out of the dipper, and the Scot seems to have had a moment there at turn number 14, and the Saints driver dropping on down. Meanwhile, speaking of rising on up, well, it's James Parker versus Mike Pollard. Parker on the right, Pollard on the left, and Pollard gets in behind and makes his way into turn 20. Can he make the return move here for DCW Racing versus the 88 Tech Racing driver? I don't think so. They both clatter their way over the turn 21 apex, exit the chase chicane, and down towards Murray's Bend, and James Parker, who on the previous lap set a personal best and the fastest lap of the race of a 2:05.29, which is half a second faster than what anyone else has achieved so far in race conditions in this race. James Parker is now rising up. His next target will be Misha Berger, who is currently 5.5 seconds ahead, and that is quite a way to go given the time they've got remaining. As they make the way on through here, we do look to Misha Berger, who is a little bit further up the road, and the Saints driver pushing on versus Jack Atkinson. And in terms of the way the lap times are going right now, Misha Berger, in fact, is falling backwards in terms of lap time to James Parker rather than gaining on Atkinson and Daniel Dan Weaver. And in fact, we ride on board here with Jack Atkinson as he makes his way through turn 4 at the end of the cutting and into Quarry Bend. Now, Atkinson has gradually been gaining on Daniel Dan Weaver over the last 3 to 4 laps. He's been cutting a couple of attempts out each and every lap. As we hear that Travis Linscombe-Hatfield has finally found his way past Cameron Willisey for what is P4 in the silver class. Linscombe-Hatfield now up to P14 overall as a result of that. But as we see Atkinson making his way through Philomene and now in towards Skyline here. You can see fighting at the steering wheel constantly to settle the car. Just so much on edge in terms of the nature of these Porsche Cup 992 machines. And as he makes his way through the dipper, they're close, but not able to find it at the moment in terms of potential moves. They make the way into Forest Elbow here for what for them is the 11th time of asking. But Weaver there goes a little bit deep. That's going to cost him a bit of exit speed here. And already Atkinson gains half a tenth, just coming through the kink of 19 as they make the way into Conrad here. This could be what Atkinson needs, and Weaver's already reacting. He knows that he's made a mistake because you can see he's moved once, moved again, and that's his allotment in terms of weaving on Conrad. And as they make the way down, Atkinson's going to look to the inside here, but he'll put him on the outside into the chase. Now, can he go around the outside on the brake? And will Daniel Dan Weaver answers the question before we see it unfold. In fact, he tucks in, and Atkinson now takes the lead of the gold class here with 7 minutes to go and approximately 4 more laps on the table as they make the way down into Murray's corner. But a nice move from Atkinson, and Daniel Dan Weaver, I think, deciding, you know what, I'll get him on the next one as they make the way coming out of the final corner and onto another lap. Meanwhile, Misha Berger continues to fall backwards to James Parker. That lap from Misha Berger, and 207.268. James Parker, meanwhile, at 205.793. He's just taken 1.5 seconds out of Misha Berger. And that is absolutely phenomenal when you consider the fact they have been on these tyres for over 20 minutes, and Parker just finds time by the dozen as he goes deeper and deeper into these races, and that's his strategy. But of course, he's not had it all clear cut here today as they make the way on up their hill. And meanwhile, Pollard behind, not too far off of Parker, albeit he is lapping a little bit slower by half a second a lap on average. But we have had some other moves being made out of the circuit. We've had Gordon Ramsay also jumped to the pits due to an incident. In fact, we are going to get a replay of what's happened to Gordon Ramsay, and here it is coming out of what is Griffiths Bend into the cutting he went. And does the car simply go on in here? It does indeed. The rear cuts round and a whack to the wall there, and well, you can see the rear right hand side from that hit has dropped slightly, and that is Gordon Ramsay's race done and dusted, unfortunately. And well, we've got to feel for the Saints driver who was pushing very hard, but it has gone so very wrong as that is a retirement for Gordon Ramsay, I'm sorry to announce. But meanwhile, as we return to our live pictures here, things have settled down, but here is one driver who does not want to settle down, and you can understand why. He's got Cameron Willisey only 1.1 seconds behind, but in a wounded car that's not on the pace. But Travis Linscombe-Hatfield right now knows if he can pick up P2 in the silver class, he's looking after P3 shortly. Currently P4 in the silver class, chasing after Stephen Kershaw, who holds on to the final step of the silver podium. If he can get that P2 or at least that P3, he will gain ground on Cameron Willisey going into the final. But you can see the car just stepping out there, almost losing it coming through the dipper. And right now the American is running on the ragged edge of the division as they make the way down through Forest Elbow, pushing it all the way to the limit, using all the width of the circuit. That's what you love to see. But as well, I think the Rabbit Hole Racing team right now will be telling him as well, don't bin it. You cannot afford to bin it in the championship campaign as they make the way down towards what is the chase once again. Meanwhile, continuing to gain ground, we can see here that Steve Hughes is hounding after Ryan Davies for P10 overall as it's the rise of the silver class here, trying to get more than one driver into the top 10 overall. But Richard Simnor continues to climb up through the order. He's in P9 for DCW Racing Red right now. What is P8 in the gold class? His next target is Simon Bamber, the silver leader, as they make the way across the timeline. Meanwhile, I'm hearing that Richard White and Glenn Humberstone have exchanged places. I think Glenn Humberstone's had an incident on circuit. In fact, he's gone off circuit from what I understand, so Richard White's come on through as a result of that, as Glenn Humberstone has jumped to the pits now. That's off camera. But meanwhile, Travis Linscombe-Hatfield here on camera is looking to find his way onto the podium of the silver class. He's not got long left to do it, however, and the pressure is on. But as they make the way on up towards turn number 2 here,
I think the question for Linscombe Hatfield is how much has he got left in terms of the pace in that car, because we have already seen through some of the most trickiest corners on this circuit, including the dipper, he does not seem to have a stable rear end, but as he makes his way into the cutscene, this is brave, this is very brave, and he goes all the way around the outside. Could he close the door into Quarry Bend as we see Kershaw trying to come back? He does, and Linscombe Hatfield, my goodness, what if there was space between him and that outside wall into the cutting? I don't know where it was, because that was absolutely phenomenal. And right now, I think if we ever needed proof that Linscombe Hatfield has championship credentials in the silver class, that is the proof right there. And then save it in terms of a clip on YouTube, folks, because when you look back, if he takes the championship, that may just be the moment that seals the deal as he makes his way on down through what is the dipper there and into Forest Elbow. Meanwhile, Ryan Davies here continues to hold Steve Hughes at bay, but of course for Linscombe Hatfield, this works out technically for him to a degree, as his teammate right now of Steve Hughes, if he can't make ground, then he'll be coming closer and closer to Linscombe Hatfield in short order as they make their way down on Conrod. Meanwhile, to give you an update on the battle for the overall lead and the gold class lead as they go onto the penultimate lap, the 14th time of asking, they make the way onto a lap here at Bathurst. We can see that Jack Atkinson leads in the feature ahead of Daniel Dan Weaver, and the gap is only 6 tenths now. Daniel Dan Weaver was leading for a long time. He fell behind Atkinson 3 laps ago in the run down Conrod into the chase. A bit compliant with regards to letting the move happen, but I wonder if Daniel Dan Weaver on the next lap will really start to up the ante. He is only 6 tenths back, and he is not falling back. He is matching Atkinson's lap times neck and neck on 206.3s, and that's exactly the sign that he's controlling the pace right now. But as they make the way through 2 and up towards 3, we look back to Steve Hughes here, still trying to find his way past Ryan Davies. You can see that in the rear of the picture, there is Linscombe Hatfield, who has got Stephen Kershaw and Cameron Willesee right behind him, with Linscombe Hatfield after making that move, which I'm going to go out there and say has been the pass of the day, if not a contender for pass of the season. Linscombe Hatfield now has the ultimate pressure of Kershaw, who is flying right now in the run up towards turn 2. He goes a bit deep, almost clipping the back of his rival, but not to be. And I think Kershaw then with a bit of a squeaky brakes moment as they make the way into turn 3, and as they do, Cameron Willesee looks up the inside, but the door's shut there on corner apex, and Kershaw knows not to let his rival through. He doesn't want to miss out on this P1 opportunity at a silver podium as they make the way through Quarry and up towards McPhillamy Park. They go through the quadruple left-hander sequence, I should say, as I mince my words there, and as they make the way through turns 8 and 9, shortly in towards turn 10. It's all to play for in that final spot, that final podium spot, as they come on through McPhillamy and over towards Skyline. But as they come on through, we do a look a little bit further up the order to Jack Atkinson here, who has found his way away for Daniel Dan Weaver, and in fact Daniel Dan Weaver has had a major moment at some point, because he has lost 3 seconds in the space of 1 sector. I think it's gone wrong at the dipper and he's had to back it out. But in return, now Misha Berger is right there behind him. The Saints driver here is only 6 tenths off as they'll make the one to their final lap shortly. Meanwhile, Stephen Kershaw's been involved in an incident of some description off camera. We will find out about that very shortly as well. But the big contention point right now is, can Steve Hughes finally find his way past Ryan Davies to get into an overall top 10? Not this time as they make the way into the chase. Instead, he waits his turn as meanwhile race leader Jack Atkinson goes onto the final lap as I look out my commentary booth window. But just before we cut to Jack Atkinson, we're going to take a look back at what happened to Stephen Kershaw only a moment ago. As we can see there, his Porsche definitely damaged, but what triggered it? Whereas in the run over Skyline and now down towards the dipper they went. Now did Kershaw lose it under braking? Well, Linscombe Hatfield went very deep and Kershaw goes round and into the wall. They're coming out the dipper. No contact there with Cameron Willesee. That's a mistake of his own by looks of things. And well, he comes to the pits now in what has been a difficult end to a superb race from him. Meanwhile, Richard Simnor has gained another place. It's just been missed. He gains P8. He's finally cleared the silver leader of Simon Bamber. Richard Simnor now is in amongst the top group of gold drivers here. He's made it into the top 8 on the final lap, but I think he's going to be grinning a little bit at this point. Was the DCW Racing red driver, I think, going into this race, thought, you know, I'm going to give it everything, and now he has given it all, and he's been rewarded for it. He's only got to bring it home, and there's not long to go as he makes his way down and around over the mountain. But meanwhile, we look to Jack Atkinson here, and we can see that Atkinson continuing to hold on to lead right now by 3.3 seconds over Daniel Dan Weaver, who in return has Misha Berger and James Parker breathing down on him. But the difference is here that James Parker is very close to the back of Misha Berger and sizing up a move here as they come through 19.
Down through Conrad they go, and as they do, you can see there that we were doing quite a bit of weaving. I think that's the limit they can do as they make the way through Conrad and down towards the chase. And Parker looking around the outside here as Berger defends the inside. It'll set him on the outside for 21. And as they make the way under break in there, Berger gets it nicely defended before the chicane. And as a result, holds on. But meanwhile, Daniel Danweaver's gone very deep. It's going to be 3 wide coming through 22. And we do have to cut away from them because here is Jack Atkinson who takes the win as a privateer for UKSimRacing in the feature race over in the gold class. But who's it going to be? P2, and it's Daniel Danweaver on the line ahead of James Parker just about, and it's Misha Berger who misses out on a podium right at the finish in the gold class, and overall ahead of Mike Pollard P5. Great drive from the DCW Racing blue driver. Stuart Bickley comes on home to take P6 ahead of Lee Holmes in P7, and then it is Simon Bamber who comes home your winner in the silver class, P8 overall, in a splendid drive for UKSimRacing the privateer. And then we see Richard Simnor P9 followed by Ryan Davies P10, and then it'll be Steve Hughes who finishes second on the silver podium, P11. He couldn't quite make the move on Ryan Davies in the end. It'll be Travis Linscombe Hatfield who comes home P3 in the silver class to wrap up the silver podium ahead of Cameron Willisey who 13th, P4 overall. Will feel the damage has been limited by finishing immediately behind his championship rival Corey Lazarus P14 in the end. Not to be his day today at what we could arguably call his home circuit, given that his New Zealander currently based in Australia, as I've been informed. But as he makes his way through the final corner, he'll take P14 overall at P10 in the gold class ahead of Lewis Willisey here, who'll come through shortly to complete the overall top 15, and what has been an up and down race for the second member of the Willisey Racing team here as he makes his way into the final corner. He'll still pick up a P5 in the silver class, which is something to be very proud of given the rate of attrition that we have seen at Bathurst in the silver class. And it'll be Richard White who comes home P6 in the silver class, P16 overall ahead of Stephen Kershaw here, who will shortly make his way to the line and losing out at the dipper right at the end. And well, an absolutely difficult moment for what is Stephen Kershaw in terms of being right there in the hunt for the podium, only to miss out. And then we have Glenn Humberstone who has already finished the race, a lap down P18. Now you may be noticing at this point, ladies and gentlemen, before we cut to results, our drivers are slowly making their way around over the mountain at the moment. And the reason for that is they're not just doing a cool down lap at the moment, which is always great to see here as they take the temperature off the tyres, pick up a little bit of debris for the purposes of making sure the cars have got ample weight to pass stewarding checks and whatnot. But they're also getting ready to do the run out of Forest Elbow all the way down Conrad and to make the jump. And as Misha Berger gradually brings all the field together here, they start to line up on the run out the corner. And well, I think a couple of drivers are getting a little bit too close for comfort in terms of parking on up, but shortly they will be going for the run to try and jump the wall. And if you're wondering what jumping the wall means here at Bathurst, well, you'll have to wait and see. It's a splendid sight, and who can make it and land on all 4 wheels? That will be the challenge. But as we see our drivers parking up, we look to the helicopter here, and indeed the helicopter being perched over all our drivers right now, everybody parking up in splendour. But we look to the front of the field, and it's Misha Berger there who gets us underway then as they make the way in the charge to try and jump the wall. Now, of course, they're completely flat out. It's not hard to do initially in terms of you just got to go straight down the Conrad straight, but whereas you'd normally go through the right-hand kink for the purposes of doing the race, he's going to head straight on and try to jump the tyre barrier with the depression in the road. But I'm going to go quiet here. Let's wait and see how Misha Berger gets on. And over he goes as he lands it. He does land it on all 4, but into the wall. Meanwhile, we've got quite a few drivers that are coming on through, and everyone blowing off a bit of steam here as they make the way. Oh, goodness me, Corey Lazarus not even making it over the wall. Meanwhile, Richard White here, and also what is, I believe, Stephen Kershaw trying to make the jump. They're going to go for it as well. And, well, no, Stephen Kershaw just makes it into the tyre barrier, and the same for Richard White there as... Well, 10 out of 10 for style points there. Didn't quite suit the landing in terms of doing the quadruple flip, but that was Olympic diving. I think he would have got a gold medal, but still going for the jump. They're a little bit fun for our drivers to blow off some steam, but we do take a look back at some of our drivers who tried to make the jump there, who we didn't quite catch on camera, and well, that includes Simon Bamber, I do believe. In fact, Simon Bamber made it, but then made contact with a driver who was a bit wayward in front of him, and well, nice one from Simon Bamber. We're going to ride on board for the purpose of that one and see what happened. Or whoever he made contact with and I have to try to prevent myself from laughing there very briefly. Well, they've headed into the stratosphere there, and Simon Bamber still the car that can make it into the pits, no doubt about it. But brilliant stuff there from Simon Bamber, and absolutely brilliant from all of our drivers. But with that in mind, let's take you through those race results, of course, subject to any stewards' inquiries. So as we do look to results here in round 10 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Season 4, at Bathurst here today in the feature race, we saw Jack Atkinson take the win by 4.4 seconds over Daniel Dan Weber, the privateer, pipping the DCW Racing blue driver to the post with James Parker P3 for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple. Then Misha Berger just missing out on an overall podium there. Behind him, Mike Pollard P5 in a great race on the DCW Racing blue driver. Stuart Bickley, Lee Holmes completing the top 7, all gold drivers. And then we have the silver winner, P8 overall of Simon Bamber, the privateer, coming through the field from P20 at the start of the race to finish P8 and take the silver win. He'll be pleased as punch with that. Richard Simnor P9 in a drive to remember as well, cutting his way through the field. 12 places gained, much like Simon Bamber. Both drivers having a difficult sprint race, but turning it around in the feature. And then Ryan Davies P10 with Steve Hughes best of the rest in P11. But coming on to the individual class results, of course, we can see here that Jack Atkinson taking the gold win ahead of Daniel Dan Weber and James Parker, who found his way onto the podium at the final juncture, just missing out and picking up P2 in the drag race to the line versus Weber, but still a fantastic battle between them. Misha Berger missing out on the podium, but still a solid P4 there to add to his points tally, with Mike Pollard, as we said earlier, picking up a great P5. Stuart Bickley, Lee Holmes, Richard Simnor, Ryan Davies and Corey Lazarus complete in the top 10, with Gordon Ramsay retiring 5 laps from the end, Emil Koopmans 8 laps from the end, and the same for Tim Darracott. We then come on to the silver class, and we can see here in the silvers that it was a win for Simon Bamber by 5.5 seconds over Steve Hughes, and well, the privateer pushing it all the way to the end. And in the rabbit hole racing pair of Steve Hughes and Travis Linscombe Hatfield, deserved podium finishes for them, although I think Travis Linscombe Hatfield may be wondering, if it were not for that contact with Cameron Willesee at the chase chicane, could he have come home in P2 and picked up even more points to aid his crusade? For the simple reason he's chasing down Cameron Willesee, and when your main championship rival Cameron Willesee finishes in P4 behind you, you're not gaining too much ground. And the Willesee Racing driver there, he'll be the championship leader going into the season finale. The gap will have compressed slightly, but not as much as Linscombe Hatfield would have perhaps liked. Lewis Willesee, the second member of the Willesee family, finishing P5, and a great race from him. I believe that's his first top 5 of the season, or perhaps his second, unless I'm mistaken, with Richard White there P6, Stephen Kershaw P7, losing out right at the end, with Glenn Humberstone finishing a lap down in P8, and then the retirees of Craig Shield, Ashley Coverdale, who complete the top 10, Mark Oliver, Alistair Hatcher finishing 15 laps down a piece there, and those are your silver standings in the feature race here at Bathurst. Well, with our results covered and whatnot, you know what it's time for us to do. It's time for us very shortly to conduct our post-round interviews for our drivers. But of course, before we do, we just take another look back at some of that fence jumping. This is from Travis Linscombe Hatfield's perspective firstly, and as he tries to make his way on over the fence, and successfully made it, but found the wall in return. And as we do return to the well, in fact, we've run out of replay time, and I believe the lobby has closed, so we're going to cut away and be back. No, in fact, we can bring you a bit more replay footage, ladies and gentlemen, and in fact, we'll try and get you the helicopter perspective of all our drivers making the jump together. And well, here you go, and you can see them here all making their way over in style. Misha Berger was the first one, of course, and oh goodness me, we do seem to have lost a couple, but there's the majority of our drivers go, and indeed, not too many Porsches survive in the run. And then we, of course, did have Richard White with the perhaps 10 out of 10 pirouette here, making his way up towards the barrier right at the end. And well, I'll leave your thoughts here, whether he deserves a 10 out of 10 or whether it's because he didn't land the right way up. It's only a 9 out of 10. But on that thought, we'll be back in approximately 5 to 10 minutes for post-round interviews.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we're about to kick off our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today, we've only got 2 interviewees available, and we're going to be doing a joint interview with 2 drivers from DCW Racing, one from the red outfit, one from the blue outfit. Our red driver shall be Richard Simnor, the number 40, well, in fact, not the number 42 driver, my apologies there. Numbers are a little bit incorrect. We will get that fixed very shortly on screen for you. But hearing from Richard Simnor and then from Stuart Bickley all together. And 2 drivers with very mixed fortunes, with Stuart Bickley cutting a much more consistent evening compared to Richard Simnor having to push to recover after a difficult sprint race. But as we bring them both into the interview room, I'm joined up by Richard Simnor and Stuart Bickley now. Gents, difficult racing out there from start to finish at a circuit that takes no prisoners when it comes to sprint style racing in a tricky car like the Porsche 992. Looking to yourself first, Richard, 2 very different races. How do you feel Australia's treated you this evening?
I think we all saw how the sprint race went. Yeah, I was sort of sitting pretty thinking, oh, this would be good for the feature race. I'll just sit behind Mikey. Yeah, my aim was 8th, the typical DCW feature race pole position. And yeah, I touched the wall, and it burst my tyre, and it just flipped me around. That was it.
Oh, goodness me. A bit of a rough moment there, making it so you had to do everything in the feature, which we'll come on to shortly. Meanwhile, Stuart, for yourself, 2 very consistent finishes, a P8 in class in the sprint, a P6 in class in the feature. A happier evening?
Yeah, not too bad, to be honest. Sprint, I was a little frustrated that locking up behind our teammate Mikey going into turn 2. My own fault. I should have just backed off at the end of the straight and give him a little bit of room. But yeah, I've stuck to his rear end, and I just he caught me out with his brake in and locked up. So yeah, not too bad, not a bad recovery. And then the feature just let everyone else fall off the track really, and just stayed consistent. Yeah, not bad.
Oh, indeed. So coming on to your individual qualifying performances, and we'll start with yourself, Stuart. It looked as though it was always going to be tough out there in qualifying, but in terms of the lap you're able to put in the end, it was enough to put you P7 on the grid with 205.550. Do you feel as though that was the target, or was there a bit more in the car?
I think there was a little bit more. I put myself under pressure a bit silly. Managed to put it in the wall on first effort, and then actually spun on the warm up going out the pits again. So yeah, managed to get that lap in with I think it was like 20 seconds to spare. So there was a little bit more, but I was conscious that I actually needed to get that lap in. So probably left a couple of tenths on the table. I'd have been happier down in the mid 4s, but yeah, it all played out really.
And meanwhile, coming to yourself, Richard, qualifying at 2 places behind your colleague, but never too far off of the battles in the top 5. Were you happy with the lap, given that you were pipped to P8 by the silver pole sitter?
Well, great effort by the silver class tonight. Everybody's really quick. But what Stu neglects to tell you is that because I spun on my initial outlap, they were all absolutely having a laugh at my expense. At least I then didn't bin it on my fast lap. So so I did get one up on Stu in that respect. But we were all a bit panicky about like getting a clean lap in. I think I did say on my first flyer on the Discord, like, just it's a banker, just put a banker in. And made it round. It's fine. I mean, we did a bit of practice in a week, and we saw the times that people were doing. We knew we weren't going to be quick. So I mean, it wasn't actually that bad in the end. I thought it was quite a nice sort of it was top 10, wasn't it? It was like 8th. Where did we qualify? I qualified 9th, didn't I? Yeah. It wasn't too bad. Not too bad, not too good, but it was all right. It was in the ballpark.
Well, now coming on to the first race of the evening, the sprint race. And of course, not a race that went the way you wanted it to, Richard. You mentioned that earlier, but at the very start, very close for all of the gold class, indeed the silvers behind in the run up the mountain for the first time. Just take us through from your relative's perspective, starting with yourself, Richard, what it's like when cold tyres, cold brakes, standing start, it's the short run to turn 1, and then it's the charge up towards Griffiths Bend at 2.
I've never raced it before, so I was... it was just an overwhelming sort of experience. All the sensors were just sort of going all over the place, and I was just nail focused on razor focused, even not nail focused, razor focused on people in front to make sure that they weren't spinning, and all the time reminding myself not to take their line, because that's how you get put in the wall. And that's not how I got put in the wall. I just got put in the wall because I took too much speed and I didn't recognise it quick enough. But yeah, it was really good. As Stu said, he misjudged his braking into two, which was a bit for us, because obviously with the three of us all together, we didn't want to take each other out. We were quite happy being where we were on track, because it would have been good for the feature. But yeah, one of those things. Mistakes happen at the end of the day, and by the looks of my skim of the replay, a lot went on behind us that we didn't get to see. So I did wonder when I came back out of the pits after towing for like 2 minutes. I was like, well, I'm not lapped by the entire field, so something must have cracked off. But that was one of those quiet sort of races after that. Just tried to put a bit of practice in for the feature, and just get my braking points a bit better and use it as a bit of a learning experience.
Oh, indeed. And that learning experience paid dividends going into the feature race, and we'll come on to that shortly. But to yourself, Stuart, of course, running that close to other drivers over the mountain, down Conrad, and doing it again and again in a 12-minute race as well, and in a race where you're right on the edge all the way from start to finish. How do you pace yourself for that, given how difficult these Porsche cars are to drive and how unstable they are with those elevation changes?
Yeah, certainly tricky. I think you almost have to forget that there's a car in front of you and spot your own braking markers. It's far too easy for the car in front to maybe brake a little bit late and go wide, and they might potentially touch the wall, and you can so easily get dragged into their incident and follow them by trying to match them. So yeah, you just can't try and pretend that the car's not there. Drive your own lines, sort of making allowances for if they're braking a little early or whatever. But yeah, and sort of accept the fact that the mountain's probably not the place to try and force an overtake. I think once you accept that, unless they make a mistake, of course, once you accept that if everyone's running fine, that's not going to be the place to make a lunge, then it just becomes getting the rhythm and following it through.
Now, coming on to the feature race, of course, and started with yourself, Richard, starting P21 on a grid where the pace has been absolutely phenomenal. In your own words, the Silver's doing so well tonight. What was your goal going into the feature race? Was it just sort of, let's see where we end up after 30 minutes?
Last first challenge, obviously. But don't know really. I just was like, well, let's just enjoy it and see what I can do. Some guys really put up a big fight, which is great. It was great fun. I knew that I was going to be faster at certain sections of a track, but the trouble is, those sections were the sort of top of the circuit over Skyline and down the hill, and just could not really get the opportunities that I wanted to. I was sort of aiming like maybe if I get like one every lap, I'll be able to like get to the front. And it's ambitious in any race, but I sort of took a load, through their own mistakes, and then got stuck behind one guy. I had to sort of really go on the brakes into that last chicane, and then I made a mistake into turn 2. Nearly did a Bickley, as I said to him in the race. Nearly went into the wall, and then had to do it a second time. I think I did it into the last corner, the next lap. But I could see the funny thing about it is I could see Stu the whole race, and he was just getting closer and closer and closer all the way through the race. And I just thought, come on, keep the tyres, keep going. I kept slipping out the last corner and ruining them and getting a bit of heat into them. So it was really, really tough out there, to be honest. And then right near the end, caught up with Simon. I saw that he was winning, so I didn't want to take any risks. So I sort of backed off a little bit. And then last couple of laps, he obviously was trying to preserve his tyres, or maybe his rears had gone. Caught right up to him. He let me through going into the last lap, so I could chase after Stu. And who was behind you, Stu? I can't remember.
Lee Holmes.
That was it, Lee Holmes. So and I could see Lee had a tag on a wall. So I was like, oh, come on, and then I hit that same wall again, coming over the fast left-handers. But thankfully this time I hit it square on, and it was all right. I saved myself, and a little bit of steering gone, but the car didn't snap like it did in the sprint. Got it home, and do you know what? I came round the last chicane, and Simon was still there, so I'll just give him the place back, to be honest, and let him cross over in 8th. Probably the right thing to do. Yeah, but it was really good fun. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I was surprised I even got top 10 because I think, yeah, after like a couple of minutes, I was like 16th, and I was thinking, oh god, this is going to be one of those embarrassing results that'll probably take us a drop week. Might still be my drop week. I don't know. I need to look at the scores, but I enjoyed it.
Well, indeed, and I'm glad to hear you did enjoy it because it was superb seeing you gradually creep your way up the order little by little. And in the broadcast chat, many were commenting on the fact he's gained another one. He's continued to sneak his way gradually up the order. So very strong at drive from yourself, Richard. And then coming to yourself, Stuart. Very tight battling between yourself, your colleague Mike Pollard, and also Lee Holmes behind. It seems as though you three were in a back and forth for trying to get into the top 5 for quite some time.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, yeah, Mikey, to be fair, I think he was always just a touch after a few laps in, just a touch out of reach. He was sort of easing off towards the end, so the gap got smaller. And then, yeah, Lee did a great job behind of sort of keeping the pressure on. It felt, looking at the gap across the lap, that I was probably quicker over the mountain and down, and then he sort of had the legs on me, sort of as you come out onto the back straight and through that last section. I was really struggling with not the right-hander after the back straight, but the left. I kept just turning in and kissing that sausage on the inside, and then obviously that sort of pushes you out wide, and we know iRacing grass, as soon as you sort of get a couple of a wheel on it, you get sucked off, and yeah, you just sort of stuck out there, and it gets a bit tense. So yeah, I was struggling a little bit with that corner, but yeah, I was able to sort of get a big enough gap over the mountain that the draft that he was getting wasn't enough to get, right up alongside. So managed to hold him off, and I think he, like I say, he touched the wall a couple of times after that, trying to keep up, and yeah, dropped away a little bit. But yeah, no, it was certainly quite tense for the first few laps.
And I have to ask, of course, Stuart, with a number of huge names in the gold class who you were battling with throughout the entirety of the feature race, including Gordon Ramsay and Emil Koopmans, all falling victim to the circuit, did that change your perspective after a while in terms of, okay, perhaps now it's time to dial it back to 90% rather than 100?
Yeah, I mean, sort of similar to Rich, I think the only time I've driven this is, I think we had a GT3 race in UKSR season 4, maybe something like that, a couple of years, quite a while ago, and I think I did half of that and put it in the wall and quit because it was wrecked. So yeah, apart from a couple of laps practice in the pickup, not a lot of experience here, so wary of that, and yeah, just wanted to get some points in the bag. I know it's the leaders, obviously the championship are out of touch, but me and Rich are pretty close, and it was nice to gain a couple of points back on him this round. So yeah, it should be quite close, or closer, going into Nerbs, another track which I'm not a particular fan of, and I think same sort of tactic there will just be survival, really, almost as it was this week.
Oh, indeed. And coming over to yourself, Richard, when we think about the fact that in 2 weeks' time we conclude at the ultimate Green Hell circuit, how are you feeling for it?
Never raced there, to be honest. It's going to be another one of those, isn't it? Yeah, I've driven around it lots in other sims. Years ago, I did lots of like Forza 3, Forza 4, so I kind of know which way it goes, left and right. Which is kind of half the battle with Nürburgring, isn't it? Really, especially when you come like between like the carousels, it's mostly just sort of left, right. Fairly. Somebody will tell me that's not what it's like, but for me, that's what it's like. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is just not getting too ambitious in that first sort of sector as well, because I always forget there's a tight right-hander at one point near the maybe like turn 6 or something. I don't know what number it is, but I always go off there. So whenever I practice, but I don't know. We'll see. It'll either be great or it'll either be absolutely terrible, won't it? So yeah.
I do like the perspectives from both you in terms of it's about survival, and it will either be great or it may not be great. But what is looking great at the moment, and just a passing thought with regards to DCW Racing, both teams going into tonight inside the top 3 in the team championship, with Blue leading the way 30 points clear of Samsung Canaan Esports, and then Red in P3 only ahead based on result count back against 88 Tech Racing Team Purple. How are you guys collectively feeling in the DCW Racing camp? Because 2 teams inside the top 3, really pushing hard all the way through, working together as well. It must be a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, fair play to Rich. He's sort of doing that team on his own. He's, I think he's had maybe one or two races with some other team members, but to be third when it's a single driver scoring is mightily impressive. I don't like giving him compliments, but yeah, fair play.
I feel really awkward now.
Good. And then as for DCW Blue, myself, Mikey Pollard, and Darth Weber, which is Daniel Weber to everyone else. We seem to be quite consistently getting the points. Like I took a win at Road Atlanta. I think Mikey took a win somewhere else. Can't remember. And Dan did really well tonight and was unlucky not to hold on to a win. So so we consistently getting the points in, and I don't know. I'm sure if it comes down to it, none of us will have done the maths. But if it come down to it, and it was, a situation where Rich would let one of us buy to take the championship, I'm sure we would refuse.
No, I mean, yeah, like typical DCW, isn't it? Just like whatever we can do to stop the other guys from winning in our team. So I mean, from our point of view, when we put these teams together, I mean, really, we knew that Red was probably going to be the sort of weaker of the two teams. We tried to sort of balance it out. Obviously, I've been doing really well in P Cup in the last few seasons, racing up against James and doing really quite well in the last couple. We knew that like Andy probably wouldn't be able to attend every race, and we knew that Matty, he would admit himself, he's not the quickest in the team. So we were like, well, let's make sure that the blue team is good and strong. We didn't really know Dan very well either. That was the other thing. He was a bit of an unknown because he'd only just joined the team to do some endurance races with us. And I mean, he's a pocket rocket, really, isn't he? I mean, let's be honest. He's come out flying.
Yeah, he has, and I mean, this is my first season in P Cup, so we weren't sure how that was going to go.
You're terrible. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I agree. Not having driven it until this, until this league started. So I agree with what Rich said.
Oh, it's great to hear the camaraderie down in the camp, and also how it is working out for both of the teams as we get towards the end of the season. Of course, having given your thoughts with regards to the Nürburgring circuit, the only last thing I do want to ask you guys, as always, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, obviously all the DCW members, Got Baker, Paddy Faulkner, Tiny Balls, Andy Jones. And then all the guys that race with us.
Pepperoni.
Oh yeah, and Jeffy, myself and Rich have actually got a 6-hour endurance event on Saturday at Nurbs, Nürburgring GP though, not the horrible one. In the
it's a horrible chicane though.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, so that's in the Platinum Endurance Championship in the P2, which we're currently sat third in the teams championship. So we're mainly practicing on that. And if anyone wants to watch, that's on Saturday starting at 12 o'clock for qualifying. And then we've got a couple of other rounds of that before the end of the year. So all busy.
Oh, indeed, you guys are sounding always busy behind the wheel, but I do wish you both the best of luck in the Platinum Cup race this weekend, and hope it all does go the way you want it to. But with that, and I'm sure your peers at DCW Race will appreciate the kind words. Richard, Stuart, it has been a pleasure to have you both in the interview room. Congratulations on your results today, and I look forward to seeing how you get on in the season finale in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.
So hearing there from Richard Simnor and Stuart Bickley, both from DCW Racing. Richard Simnor from DCW Racing Red, and meanwhile Stuart Bickley from DCW Racing Blue. Two drivers from the same outfit, albeit from two sister teams. Two very different evenings of racing for them, with Stuart Bickley having the races which were more consistent in terms of the results, albeit still on edge, and a couple of near-miss moments, as we heard there. Meanwhile, Richard Simnor at the polar opposite end of the spectrum. A sprint race to forget, but a feature race to be proud
proud of as he charged his way through the field from the back of the grid to finish inside the top 10. And with both teams inside the top 3 going into tonight in the Teams Championship, and both drivers contending for spots inside the top 5 in the Gold Championship going into the season finale, it is all to play for the pair of them. And indeed, a little bit of inter-team rivalry does not go amiss when they're both looking to end the season on a high, but we do wish them well in the Platinum Cup race this coming weekend, and as I mentioned there, they'll get onto the grid come midday, and we look forward to hearing how they get on. Indeed, we may just have them in the interview room for the season finale. But with that, ladies and gents, we've got no other interviews for this evening, which means it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed the show today and you want to know more about the UK sim race community in terms of the series we run, alternatively what else we stand for outside of the series we run in the world of sim racing and all things motorsport, then why not check out our official website, at UKSimRacing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you're more Twitter inclined, you can always go to our official Twitter at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. Also, if you do want to keep up to date with all of our latest broadcasts and whatnot, why not subscribe to the YouTube channel? Of course, that's UK Sim Racing on YouTube. Alternatively, on Twitch, we are twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing. And a big thank you to our affiliates as well. And those affiliates include Swello Omeda Sim Racing Coaching, their YouTube URL on screen there. And why should you listen to Swello Omeda? Well, a multi-official series winner on iRacing. Swello Omeda has got coaching advice for all classes of driver and in multi-disciplines in iRacing. Indeed, if you're looking to gain a 10th, a whole second, or alternatively improve on your consistency or everything in between, Swello Omeda is the guy to go to for all things sim racing coaching. On top of that as well, we do have Race Anywhere, and Race Anywhere is the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Their website, raceanywhere.co.uk. Alternatively, we have got Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide. So no matter what your level or discipline in sim racing or real world motorsport, Demon Tweets could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. Their web address, demon-tweets.com. And lastly but not least, we have Amazon, the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work through the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including the likes of Amazon Prime, Fire tablets, and also Amazon Alexa. And their web address, amazon.co.uk. But with all that in mind, of course, it is time for our drivers to pack up their bags and make their way from Australia to Germany for the season finale in 2 weeks' time at the Nürburgring circuit. Indeed, one round of racing to stand between our drivers and their championship campaigns, ending on that ultimate high. It's going to go down to the wire in the Gold Drivers' Championship, in the Silver Drivers' Championship, and also in the Teams Championship. Nothing is resolved before the season finale, and that means it's all open, wide open on the table, and who will come away with the spoils in 2 weeks. We'll find out on Thursday, the 1st of December 2022. It's going to be broadcast live for you on the UK Sim Racing Twitch or YouTube channel, but do not miss it because it is going to be a thriller all the way to the finish. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay well, stay safe, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.